All right, good evening, everyone. We have a work session scheduled, continued from a few meetings here. We talk about the council's goals and objectives for this term. We don't have too much time tonight, and we have several things here to review. Perhaps just a brief discussion before we can continue this, potentially have a full half hour at the next meeting. Jim?
I would say yes, to be hopeful at the next meeting.
Jim, one question I have here. Now, this is really a very detail-oriented, bulleted list that expands on some of the goals and objectives we've identified in previous meetings, but who is it who put this together? There are some items that this council has not previously discussed.
Well, these, at the last meeting, there were top five goals and objectives, and those were, by the list that was sent by the council to my office, and they were tabulated so that the top five would be here, but I'm just looking.
Yeah, with respect to the five headings, we are in agreement.
Yeah.
Those are the top five.
Yeah.
There are certain bullets within those
Oh, yeah, okay,
five
now I understand your question. So the bullets, at the last meeting, Councilmember Bergner asked that we expand on this and give that's what the discussion was going to be tonight. Do you support any of those things in there, none of them, or how do you want to handle it?
Okay. Because certainly some new ideas we have not addressed before, particularly under affordable housing, the bullet about explore a real estate transfer tax to support a housing trust fund,
Is that someone's idea or
a
someone?
short-term rental buyout program. These are new things we haven't talked about yet. Certainly interesting, worth discussing, something that would need more breadth than the limited time we have tonight. Go ahead.
I just feel like I know that many of you would agree that the responsible use of the citizens' dollars needs to be our goal in some way, and it's not even captured on any of the points. Our main job is to be responsible for what the residents give us in terms of spending, and I just would like that to be included somewhere, that we sort of agree to that.
I don't disagree, but it's also implicit in everything we do.
But in every other...
This is also not 5 goals, it's 6, and it runs 4 pages.
Right.
The goals and objectives ought to be a couple of sentences for
Right.
each of the 5.
Well, so let me just clarify. At the last meeting, Councilmember Bergner requested that we expand it, which we did, the staff. I signed it to everyone. So we gave you the single bullets, and we were asked to expand it in front of everyone, so that's what we did.
We could put it, I'm sorry, go on.
Well, I just want to say, if you go back and look at any other old goals and objectives from old councils, the very first goal is responsible use of the taxpayer money. So I would bet I could ask all 30,000 residents, and they'd be like, yes, we want that to be the goal.
It might take you a while, but...
What?
It might take you a while.
But they would agree that we all should be, because we treat this money like it's our own money, because for many of us, it is our money.
So I don't disagree with the Councilwoman Bergner. I would just an addendum for your point, perhaps we could put a mission statement on top of this that says, the South Kingstown Town Council of this term from 24 to 26 is dedicated to fiscally responsible management of the taxpayer dollars, and these are the goals and objectives for our term, our top 5. You know what I mean? And
That I like that.
Thanks.
So
I think also too, we all submitted these goals and objectives some time ago. And so adding that mission statement, I think, would be a really good idea. And I would also like to suggest that we try to remain as flexible and nimble as possible in responding to the challenges, because we're going to have to sort of readjust. And I think that's important too.
All right. I think we got a baseline where to go forward. My only sort of resistance to some of the bullets that we have up here tonight is that they entail things we haven't discussed. We can certainly vet through whether these are, things we're interested in, but some of them entail large policy, concerns that really need to be vetted and is beyond any goal and objective we've really discussed up to this point. So we can discuss this further at a subsequent meeting, go from there.
I agree. Let's continue to.
All right, let's try this.
We basically agree that most of these things are what we want the town to work on, and we would work collaboratively on. We just need to keep refining them as those issues come before us. I mean, we're going to talk to, next week, the final meeting with the.
Union Studio.
Yes, sorry, thank you. And we can continue, and I think we just need to weave it into what we're doing.
Okay.
But I do want to just call out that we should have a mission statement, and it should include, and we should refer back and look at the other town council goals and objectives, because that is goal 1. So I think it's a good solution, and we can still have the goals that we're working on. Thank you.
All right, so we'll continue this to the next meeting for a full half-hour segment and take up much of this at that time.
Yep. Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Jay.
Council President, do you want to go back to just the headings, just the specific goal and objective with no further explanation on them? Like, how did you want to proceed with this?
I mean, I think we can leave as is. A lot of these we are in agreement with. I mean, there's just particular items that we haven't discussed yet that maybe we can further flesh out at a subsequent meeting. We haven't had an opportunity to discuss certain items with you, with staff, haven't discussed it amongst ourselves, but they happen to be within this document.
Okay.
All right, it's 7:30 p.m. We're going to get right into it. We're here for a regularly scheduled town council meeting. Today is April 14th. Our first order of business, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. All right, next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located, but this acknowledgement serves as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. Next, we have the roll call.
Council President McEntee.
Here.
Council Vice President Marin.
Here.
Councilmember Bergner.
Here.
Councilmember Alley.
Here.
Councilmember Wedgemont.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. All right, it's going to move us to item 5, approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Motion to approve items 5A, B, and C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item 6, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve item 6.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. All right, at this time, I'm going to move up new business item 11A, a resolution adopting a citation recognizing Colleen Camp upon her retirement after 35 years of dedicated service to the town of South Kingstown, as shown as follows. Whereas Colleen F. Camp is retiring after more than 35 years of dedicated service to the town, Ms. Camp began her municipal career in December 1989 as a clerk typist 1 in the town clerk's office, assisting with a myriad of duties associated with this busy office. She was selected as the executive secretary in the town manager's office on February 12, 1996, and has continued to serve as the backbone of support to that office while serving under 3 different South Kingstown town managers. And whereas in her current role as executive assistant to the town manager, Ms. Camp was responsible for assisting with the overall coordination of governmental services in the town manager's office. As a pillar of the office, Colleen was a front-facing figure for the town and interacted effectively with staff and members of the public. Her warm and outgoing personality, combined with excellent communication skills, were crucial to her success in her role. Ms. Camp was essential to the town manager's office operations and was always ready to assist with any task to meet the dynamic needs of the community. And whereas with her assistance, Ms. Camp played a key role in developing and producing the town's annual budget, Colleen exuded professionalism and upheld confidentiality at all times. She managed troubleshooting complaints submitted to the town manager's office, as well as assisted with preparing the weekly manager report, where she collaborated with various departmental personnel to obtain the necessary reference documentation. And whereas as we celebrate Colleen's career, we remember her for her exceptional work ethic, positive attitude, steadfast dedication to the town of South Kingstown and its residents. We extend best wishes for her enjoyment of her retirement with her husband Gerald Scott, son Scott Ryan, as well as her family. And now, therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of South Kingstown, do hereby extend our thanks and appreciation to Colleen Camp for her 35 years of dedicated service to the town and its residents, with sincere congratulations and best wishes for a happy and healthy retirement. From the Town Council. Now, Colleen, if you want to make any last words, up to you. Oh, Colleen, this resolution is for you.
Oh, Colleen. You've been waiting for this day. This is a great day. Push the button on the right.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very kind, and I'm honored. I think it's certainly been a fast 35 years for me, and I've enjoyed it. Worked with a lot of great people over the years. Dale Holborn hired me, worked with Steve Alfred, and now I'm here with Jim. He will carry on, and I appreciate it because I know all the work that goes into putting this stuff together. So Nicole, Amy, Lucia, Jean, and Liz, I thank everyone for that, and enjoyed the council, a lot of councils over the years for sure. But it's been good, and now it's time for me to step back and enjoy a little bit of our town. So I'll see you guys at the beach or something.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Colleen.
Jim, you want to say any words while we have Colleen here at this meeting tonight, maybe for the last time?
Yes, I'm glad you said that. So I've been a town manager here for 3 years, so I've got to know Colleen professionally, but I've known Colleen for 25 years personally. When my family moved to South Kingstown, Matunic Elementary School is like the focal point of everyone that lived down that way, and Colleen was one of the leaders there. She was there's a lot of stuff that people might not know about her. She was the co-PTO president, which demonstrated her leadership and her care for the education that this town was offering. But if I had to pick one thing that I will always look at Colleen and know just how important this is, it's her family. And she raised 2 wonderful boys that my kids went to school with. And whenever those boys' names come up, everyone just smiles because they're such well-adjusted, nice young men. And quite honestly, her love of her husband. I mean, she's always been very close, and they just exude a very good, tight marriage. Colleen has institutional knowledge. She has 35 years in this town's government. Those are days gone by. You don't see that anymore. And, you know, we've had a couple of employees in this town that had that leadership experience. Susan Flynn was one, Colleen's the other, and there's not many left at all. She's been with the town manager's office since 1996, so that's almost 30 years, served under 4 town managers. She knows more than, she's forgotten more than I know, quite honestly. But she was very instrumental in me getting a smooth transition here, and also for Terry Murphy, and also for Zaneski, town manager Zaneski, when he came in. And that institutional knowledge is going to be it's going to be a big void. It's going to be very tough to fill. So Colleen, there's big shoes to fill in that office there, but sincerely, I wish you the best, and I'm very appreciative of what you did for me in my office. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right, it's going to move us now to item 7, but before we get there, if there's any comments from council members, go ahead. All right, we're just going to move on here.
Congratulations, Colleen. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to say thank you. Jim, you said a lot of what I would have said as well. I've known Colleen for 25 years. My kids went through Matunic. You know, she ran the PTO, she did the cabaret, she did it all. She ran Little League. And she was the friendliest voice if you ever had a problem when you called town hall. If you ended up at the town manager's office, it was always Colleen's voice, very calm, directing you and assisting you, validating your stress or your accomplishments. And so it will be very, I think we've all come to realize that when you call town hall, you get a very professional response from the staff. And that culture came from, you know, longstanding staff who upheld those standards. And so I really appreciate when people say, I called town hall, I had a problem, and it was handled or I was referred to. And so a lot of that comes from Colleen operating that way. And so I'm excited for Colleen to go to take, while she says, take a step back in her chapter 2, whatever that is, I'm sure it will be fulfilling, and it will certainly involve her family, and you will definitely see her around. I don't think you still run the Little League, but you do a lot of other great things, and I do really appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, congratulations again, Colleen, and see you around town. All right, it's going to move us now to item 7, licenses. A is a resolution granting Class F 19-hour beverage licenses to South Kingstown Chamber of Commerce, Inc., doing business as Southern RI Chamber of Commerce, for the Taste of Southern RI event to be held on September 18, 2025, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and September 19, 2025, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Clark Farms on Commodore Perry Highway, Wakefield. Application by Joe Veely. Joe, welcome.
I guess if I had to follow anybody, Colleen would be my choice.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Colleen. So this is pretty routine, what we do every year. So our event is on September 18th. Taste of Southern Rhode Island. It's a hugely successful event. Again, we're fortunate that Clark Farms has agreed to be our host. And so I need a license.
All right, 2 nights this year instead of 1?
So until the last 2 years, we've always done 2 nights. 2 years ago, the second night wasn't as successful. We're going to entertain an event on the second night, and rather than reapply and come another time, I thought I'd apply for them both at once. And I think the second night has about a 50% chance of happening.
Okay. Any questions for Joe?
So when will you put your tickets on sale so that people make sure they get their tickets?
That's a secret.
Does Colleen know? Does Colleen know?
Colleen has the date. It's in an envelope. Usually mid-July, somewhere
Mid-July.
around mid-July, we'll go on. We go on to members for a short time, and then we open it up to the general public. Last year, the general public lasted less than 1 morning, and we sold about 350 tickets in 2.5 hours.
And I'll plug your other event. You've got the Chamber Choice on the 24th. Are there any tickets left for that?
There are tickets left for that. That's at Laurel Lane Country Club. Thank you for the plug. It's some great recipients of awards this year, always well-deserved.
Former board member, I'm obligated.
Yes, thank you.
All right, do I hear a motion on 7A?
Motion to approve 7A?
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Good luck, Joe.
Thank you all.
Bye, Joe.
It's going to move us to item B, a resolution granting a special events license to the Never Done Foundation of Narragansett, Rhode Island, to conduct a portion of a car parade in the town of South Kingstown on Sunday, May 4, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town. Application by Michelle Dunn. Michelle?
This is Michelle. I'm her daughter, Reagan. I'm a vice president of the foundation.
All right, Reagan, go ahead. Tell us what's going on.
So I actually came to you guys 4 years ago and did this event as my senior project. And we've been really fortunate as the foundation as well to be able to continue to run the event each year. So a little bit about the foundation. It's called the Never Done Foundation. It's we help support families with loved ones who are going through glioblastoma brain cancer, which is how I lost my dad almost 7 years this month. And it touches home for us to be able to help others who went through what we did. And this event is one of the big ones that we do for the foundation, and it's done so well every year. We invite all Jeeps and trucks to the Elks Lodge in Wakefield, and we do a parade through SK, through the country roads, onto Route 1, the whole 9 yards. And then this year, we've been fortunate to actually end back at the Elks instead of URI this year, where they have allowed us to open up their backyard and their indoor facilities, which has been a big help this year with weather and everything. So we do an after party there, so all family and friends, even if you don't drive a truck or a Jeep, you're more than welcome to come. We do a bunch of raffles. We have a DJ. The Elks will be supplying food. It'll be a great event again this year.
All right, awesome. Any questions from council members?
I can't believe that was 4 years ago. I remember this.
It like blew by.
Yeah.
Motion to approve item 7B.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. I'm
Thank
sure it'll be
you.
another great success.
I
Good
really
luck.
appreciate it.
Good job.
All right, we're gonna move to item C, a resolution granting farm retail sales and shellfish and produce peddler licenses to Real Food RI LLC, doing business as Brandon Family Farm of Liberty Lane, West Kingston, application by Albert Brandon. Albert, welcome.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Thanks for coming. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so my name's Albert. People call me Albie Brandon, and it's my wife, Heather. And we operate Brandon Family Farm. So we've been farming in town for a little over 10 years, but 2 years ago we bought this property on Liberty Lane. And we built some greenhouses there, and we built a pole barn, and we want to do retail sales there. So it's like a portion of the pole barn that we're gonna have, that's got walled off, and that'll be for the retail sales, and it's gonna be primarily just the produce we raise. We have 2 farms in West Kingston, and nursery plants and. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Excellent. You got peddler's license as well? That's what you're looking
Yeah,
for?
I guess they threw that in there. We just applied for the retail permit, but that,
All right. Nicole, Mike, what does a peddler's
Yeah, what is
license
it?
authorize an applicant to do?
It allows them to kind of go on the go, sell the food on the go,
So it's like a food truck?
sort of, but not the same.
Yeah, and it doesn't stay in one place.
It moves
Okay.
approved areas.
What do you mean? Like they can go to like the farmer's market in town, or they can, is that,
That doesn't necessarily cover under the peddler's license. That
Okay.
would be trying to think more like.
So the way the ordinance is written, there are certain areas where peddlers cannot go. There are certain streets they can't be on. But otherwise, it means throughout the town, they're able to go from place to place. They can't stay in one place for any extensive amount of time. It's sort of, reasonable amount of time in every area, as long as they're not inhibiting traffic or things like that.
so like a traveling vegetable stand
There
or
you go.
traveling
Like the
fruit
peach-
stand?
the
Is that what
peach
you
truck.
intend to do?
no, we don't have any intent to do anything like that.
Okay, because it was checked off on the application. I think that's
Okay.
where the
Okay.
confusion came from with that.
Well, you're here tonight.
Yeah, we sell at the South Kingstown Farmers Market, and then just on the home farm. Those are the only places we intend to sell.
So this item also contemplates the peddler's license. So if you want it,
Okay.
we could authorize it.
So you understand, now that we've clarified what it is, what you could do? So I guess you could put
Yeah. Okay.
food on a
You could
truck.
go to other places is what it means.
Okay.
But
So
you
just-
can't stay there station. If you go to the other places, unlike your own farm stand and unlike the farmer's market, if you go to a street corner somewhere, it's just to, make some sales, and then you have to move on to the next.
Okay.
You might like that. That might be helpful, because Liberty
have-
Lane is in the hinterlands for some people.
I actually went out there this weekend because I had, regarding your public hearing, which will be a little bit later this evening. And so I just wanted to tell you what a beautiful operation you have. It's really, really impressive looking. You know, it's a beautiful spot. And I was curious if you had any community-supported agriculture. Like, do you sell shares, and do you have any shares still available?
So we do have a CSA. We just closed it off, but if people like really want to join, usually we let them join because we want to feed people. So that's the
Right,
main goal.
and we really want to support farmers in our community, and so if people aren't familiar with the CSAs, so basically, could you explain to us how that works?
Yes, so it starts the last Wednesday in May, and it's a weekly box of vegetables and fruits that we grow. And it's just like the first one will be lettuce. We grow 3 acres of strawberries, like bok choy, salad turnips, different things like that, and it's the equivalent of $35. And you get that, it's 13 weeks long, and then we also have a fall CSA that starts 2 weeks after that.
I'm just speaking for myself, but I'd really love some more information.
Oh, yeah,
And,
absolutely.
You know, I think there would be a lot of, you know, I know that you guys can only do so much, but it looks like you have a lot of room to expand, and it's a really nice operation, so
Thank you.
I'm happy to see you here.
Yeah, if you go to our website, brandonfamilyfarm.com, you can read about the CSA, our plant sale, and pick your own strawberries.
Oh, awesome, awesome.
I just wanted to say to you both, because I've known you for so long, the public may not know that you both are local, how you have raised your farm bit by bit, grown it, you know, no pun intended. And I know that I'm so proud of you, and this town and this community is so proud of you, how you've grown this business. And so with that, can I make a motion to approve item 7C?
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank
that
you.
passes. And we'll have you guys up in a little bit for the public hearing? All right.
Thank you.
It's going to move us to item D, a resolution granting holiday sales and victualling licenses to Little Rhodey Pizza Corp. doing business as Little Rhodey Island Deli on Tower Hill Road, Wakefield. Application by Dennis Webb. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. So I'm Dennis's wife. Josephina Dennis is away on a business trip. So I am the co-owner. We are originally from Rhode Island, moved to Tennessee for 7 years for Dennis's job. And we ended up buying a pizza shop in Tennessee that we expanded into another location, ended up being a $1 million profit business. Our children remain here, family, and we are expecting our first granddaughter. Any minute, I'm on call. I'm a nurse as well, so I gotta be in the delivery room. But that was it for us. It was time to come home, and we enjoyed owning the business, so we came across Island Deli, and it was a great fit for us. Previous owner, the way he run it, it was just, even, you know, now we went through the whole training period, and he even said, I think I want to stay and work for you. He's like, you guys are just like me. So it's been a great, you know, 2 weeks so far, so we're excited for it. We're going to keep it running the same as it's been. We're not looking, you know, to make any major changes, and it's, you know, it's going to be more laid back for us as business, you know, than what we had in Tennessee, which is good, more time for family, so that's it for us.
All right, just trying to get a sense of where this is. Is this the Island Deli location
Island
next to Dunkin'
Deli.
Donuts?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys
231
are acquiring the business from the current or previous owner?
Previous owner,
Okay.
yes.
And you're going to keep things as is, or you're going to add some pizza?
My is secret item to be determined.
Okay, all right.
No, we're not doing pizza. Just the sandwiches, the operation. We don't want to change it. It's working. Got to keep the wheels spinning, and that's what they're used to. And actually, it is unbelievable what goes on in there behind the scenes. Everything is like freshly made, homemade, minimal staff, but they work unbelievable. And they've all been there, young kids, and they've been there like 6 years. So their loyalty to the business means even more to us to keep it the same way.
Okay.
Motion to approve item 7D.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. Look forward to coming by soon.
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, it's going to move us to item 8, a presentation from Good Energy Limited Partnership regarding the Community Electricity Aggregation Program. Jim, you want to give a brief intro here, and then we'll hand it right over? Or Mark Russo, come on up.
Good evening. Mark Russo. I'm also the staff liaison to Good Energy and the Energy Aggregation Program. Tonight is our annual meet and greet with Good Energy that's requested by Councilman Marin. And what we have here is Rafida Rahman. She is straight from Boston. She took the train down, then an Uber from the train station to here to be with us. And she will run through the numbers that are up on the boards here. Okay?
Great.
So without ado, Rafida.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. I'm here, as Mark said, I'm here to update about the new electricity prices for the South Kingstown Community Electricity Program. So let's begin. Can we move to the next slide, please? So as you can see, the program launched in May 2023, and since then, the program has saved participants close to $850,000, which includes $733,000 in savings for residents and about $100,000 for others like commercial and industrial, with an average savings of $78 for each residential account. When it comes to the environmental impact, the program annually purchases around 4,000 megawatt hour of voluntary renewable resources for the default 50 and 100 product. This equates to a reduction of 2.9 million pounds of carbon dioxide emissions, which is equivalent to about having 310 gasoline-powered vehicles off the road for 1 year. And to reiterate the benefits of the program, so the program offers multiple product offerings to customers, giving them the flexibility to choose whatever product suits their budget and their values. It also provides competitive pricing that has been historically below the utility rate, although we cannot offer, all the future savings are not always guaranteed. Plus, it promotes product options backed by renewable energy credits for electricity used for residents and businesses. Next slide, please. As you can see, so the upper table is the retail prices from November 24 to May 25. Like, these are the expiring prices, and the upcoming retail prices are the table below. And the residential prices are changing to 10 cents from 16 cents, which is about a 38% decrease. And for commercial and industrial, it's about 36 to 34% decrease. And the reason that the commercial and industrial is a little bit lower than residential, it's just because they have different load profiles. So yeah, that's about it. The next slide, please. So for the upcoming prices, these are some of the outreach that we have done. Like we sent press release updates and social media updates to the town, and they kind of release that 30 days before the price changes. And because South Kingstown has a later meter read, customers can expect to see the updated prices appear on the bill around May 22nd, sometime around that week. Next slides, please. So when you switch to green electricity through the community electricity program, you are actually supporting the New England renewable energy products, also known as the RI Renewable Resources. This approach ensures that your purchase is, it's local, it's benefiting the local grid to pursue more cleaner sources, pushing off the need for fossil fuels. Next slide, please. So as you can see, the customer statistics, the launch numbers versus now. So it's not much of a change that has happened, barring a few numbers here and there, which is very common according to the usual ebb and flow. So the program has actually been going really strong. Next slide, please. So we also have some new communities lined up for participation. One is North Kingstown, which is your neighbor. They have been approved and finalized with the supplier, NextEra, who also supplies for you, and they will be joining the buying group. They're aiming for a fall launch and awaiting market adjustments and everything so that everything's on the right place. And hopefully they'll join you guys in the buying group soon. And Bristol and Middletown, they have been approved by the PUC and currently in the process of signing the ESA. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions, I'm welcome to answer.
How long is our contract with you guys? It's like 5 years, I think. And when would that be up?
I don't, Mark, do you have the number yet? Yes, it's 5 years, yeah.
So are we 3 years into this or 4?
I think this is the third year, so maybe 2. Huh? Yeah, this is the third year, so 2 more years. 2027, I think.
This past winter, could you talk about the extreme and unprecedented electric bills people have gotten, or it's been a real bad year for our citizens as far as the price of energy. So what can we expect for the winter? Are we going to be back to where we were, or?
We cannot really say anything about the prices for winter because we can't really anticipate right now. It all depends on the market. Yeah, the summer prices are a lot cheaper than used to be. For winter prices, we don't know yet. It all depends on the market.
Can you go back to the prices? I don't know who's running the slides. Was it Nicole? Okay. That's okay. When she comes back. Is it Nicole?
All right, I got a few questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
Now, despite that, energy costs have exceeded in the recent time here, Good Energy has consistently been able to provide cheaper energy costs as compared to Rhode Island Energy. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, it has.
Now, and that's partly due to, I think we have 11 communities right now that participate in the community aggregation program, allowing us to sort of...
I think it's not 11. I think it's about 6.
Oh, it's
So
6.
6 or
Okay.
7, yeah.
And by adding more communities, that allows us to have sort of more leverage to be able to get a better rate. Is that safe to say? Like if we add these 3 communities, 2 of which have already signed to move forward, 1 of which is sort of waiting out the market till they enter, would that potentially allow us to have a larger disparity, lower rates as compared to Rhode Island Energy?
It could.
That's sort of the goal here, right? The more
Yeah.
communities,
Yeah.
maybe the cheaper rate we can get by doing the Good Energy.
I'm not too I mean, the thing is that if more communities are added, like there's no, like the prices won't affect one another, but I'm not really sure if it'll be cheaper because that all really depends on the market and everything.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about the market. I'm just curious here.
Yeah.
What is it that may cause energy costs to be, more expensive or cheaper, other than just demand for energy?
Like recently, like the tariffs and everything, that is gonna probably affect the market volatility. So external stuff, like let's say if the prices of natural gas increases, that could affect electricity prices and stuff. But historically, electricity prices have been exempt from tariffs and stuff. So we for now don't have anything to worry about, but if it affects the market, it will affect utility prices as well. So it's not like the program will be affected solely.
But the energy involved here that's acquired through the community aggregation, that's all domestic energy. Is that correct?
Yes, but it's still affected by external sources because, as you can see, because a lot of electricity also comes from Canada, like the hydropower, that kind of. So it's like, even though it's New England, but still there's a relationship with Canada as well.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of externalities as well that we have to consider.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, this is right to that. Are you on that one? So, as I recall, when we got into the program, the war on Ukraine was preventing us from entering. I think we delayed it 6 months. I don't remember, Jim. Remember the market? We didn't enter the energy market. We were waiting for the prices to change a little bit. I think that was the war in Ukraine was one of the factors that was affecting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of the reasons where international unsettling could be it.
Mm-hmm.
I do, if the prices were here, I don't know if you can go back to the prices. I think in general, I'm actually a good energy customer, and I do think every 6 months I do look on the town website and I look at the prices to make sure that I'm paying the best price.
So can you talk us through how you do that, Deb? Do you get your bill? And how exactly does one do this?
Well, on the town website, it has the phone number to sign up, and so I did that way back when we joined, and then I recently, when the bills came out in January and they were high, I looked, and there was a lot of chatter in town about how high they are. I just looked at my bill to make sure I was with Good Energy and what plan I was in. I accessed my bill electronically and looked at it. Mm-hmm. So I haven't changed providers. It shouldn't be an example of one, but I'm just a regular person, and it is cheaper. I think in the winter it was like a hair cheaper than Rhode Island Energy, but not really. But I think now it looks. I can't see the board very well, but I think.
There's 3 different products.
Yeah,
One
right.
is the Rhode Island Basic, which is 9.7 cents. The upcoming price is 9.7 cents.
Mm-hmm.
And this is this product it only meets the state's renewable energy standards. It doesn't have any additional renewable energy. And then the standard product, which is the default, that is 10.014 cents, and that is close to the basic service rate, which is 10.68 cents, and the 50% is 10.548 cents, and the absolute premium product, which is the green 100%, that is 12.9 cents. So you can choose any of the 4 products that suits you best.
So for people who don't know, last resort service is
the last resort service is the Rhode Island Energy.
Is Rhode
price.
Island Energy. So you're either in Good Energy or you're in Rhode Island Energy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's last resort is like an odd name. That's just what it's been called.
Mm-hmm.
So that's if you didn't opt into the program or opt out, however it worked. I think everyone opted in and people had to opt out. You would your rate would be .068, which is, I don't know how it compares to last May, because they change every 6 months. So last May, I can't recall, but it is cheaper than it is in the winter. But that's so it's Rhode Island Energy, and then you can choose basic, or you can add to the green renewables. It looks like the next slide shows you who in town chose what. Not many people are in the green 100%. It's only like 60 people or so. Can you go up one? Yeah, most of them are in the standard. One more?
Yeah,
Or maybe the other way. Yep, there you
sixth
go.
slide. Yeah.
This is it.
So about 8,954 people are in the standard product, and 727 people are in the basic product, and 68 people are either in the 50% or the 100%. And I just want to make clarify something, that if you sign up to be in the program, or you're a new customer, usually you would be automatically enrolled in the standard product, but if you want to opt down or opt up, you have to go to the Community Electricity Program website and actively do that.
So do you know how many households are in South Kingstown? Because 8,900 seems like a lot of people are in. I don't know how many household accounts there are. Does anybody know?
10,500 to start.
That was, that's, everyone was in,
Yeah.
and then those are the people who left. Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
So 90% of the town is in
Yeah.
good energy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
The last time one of your associates was in here in October, I think, he talked about trying to negotiate in the next round for a 12-month contract to try and even out the bills during the course of the year. And what you've just presented is May to November, so I assume that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's still 6 months. Yeah, it's still in the process. I guess they're still talking about it, but I don't think a definitive action has been taken on that.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions up here?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
All right. Go ahead, Mark.
I just want to say one thing. This year's summer rate is 3% less than last year's summer rate, so it's trending in the right direction. So it's across the board. Even Rhode Island Energy is the same. So, and to Councilwoman Alley's question, everyone's bills were so high. I got a lot of phone calls on why are my bills so high. It's not the supply side. It's on the transmission and delivery side from Rhode Island Energy, which you saw there was a large meeting at the PUC because I guess they wanted higher rates at one point, get more rates. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how that turned out, but I think they were shut down on a couple of their rate increase asks. So.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how we can address all these problems with it. And, I mean, the delivery charges are really what's killing us, I think.
It is.
So that's not good energy, though. That's just
That's Rhode
everyone is
Island
right.
Energy.
Right.
Or-
Yeah, that's the baked-in bottom line is their transmission charge and their delivery charge. So whether you're good energy or not,
Right.
you're paying that. So that's a different advocacy route to go on. Not-
Exactly.
Right.
And it's the
Right.
PUC that governs it.
That,
Right.
Yes, that and the state legislature has got the ability to affect that as well.
So, Mark, are you saying that Rhode Island Energy has made up for loss of customers by increasing their delivery and transmission charges?
No.
No. I don't know why. See, they don't make any money on their electricity, so they could care. I went to a meeting at the school had a meeting with the Rhode Island Energy. There was a community meeting. All the state legislatures brought them in. And Rhode Island Energy doesn't make a dime or a penny on any electricity. They purchase it for $1, they sell it for $1 to the customers. So it doesn't really matter to them, how much electricity they procure and sell to us. So I'm not sure how they they're going on, you know, the infrastructure is just so old that they need to rebuild it, or we're going to all be stuck. So that's where a lot of this is coming from. A lot of these, yeah, it's crazy.
So, right, just a quick Google search of the Rhode Island Energy CEO received a 31% increase to $12 million compensation. So that seems to be maybe one area where
Yeah, but I
money
think,
is.
if I'm not mistaken, Rhode Island Energy, when they were at the high school, said that none of the CEO's compensation comes from the ratepayers. It
comes from kickbacks from
I
someone
don't-
else. Like it comes
that I
from
don't know,
somewhere,
but,
you know.
Yeah,
like,
I'm just you know, to defend him, he doesn't get paid by the ratepayers. Everything that the ratepayers put into the market goes into rebuilding the wires, the poles, the transformers, and
Including delivery and transmission?
just the transmission side.
Okay.
They don't produce any.
Right. They don't make any money.
Sorry, they don't produce anymore, they're simply transmission.
They simply transmit. Yeah, they just procure it and send it out.
Interesting.
All right.
So
So the new rates are going to be in effect in May 1?
for your May reading, yes.
May
meter reading.
May
Yep.
reading.
Yep.
May reading. Okay. People
was-
will like that.
Yeah, right. So I know that as of 2033 comes along, well, the state's moving towards 100% renewable energy purchases for all of our residents in the state. So that may stabilize. You know, we might be able to go with a 12-month, but I don't know what the rates will be at that point. So, okay.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people are angry at Good Energy, but I don't necessarily think that they're the bad guy. I think it's other factors.
They may be the, you know, sort of like the message. They're handling the part where there's maybe less profit than what Rhode Island Energy is handling to achieve a $12 million salary for their CEO. That I would think got to be making bank somewhere.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. All right, that's now going to bring us to public comments. If anyone in the audience wishes to speak on any matter, I invite you to come on up. We just ask that you introduce yourself and limit you to 5 minutes. We're going to do a 30-minute segment of public comment, and then we're going to move through public hearings, new business, then we're going to come back to public comment. So with that said, we're going to do first come, first serve. So anyone wishing to speak, come on up.
Kai, can you give your last name? In the minutes, it came up as Kai Unknown.
Oh, right. Never thought about that. That's a good point. My name is Kai Mafucci, and I'm here to just briefly, hopefully, talk about something that I brought up last time I was here, but I believe the chief was not here, so I specifically wanted him to hear this. This is basically directed at you. Which, just to start off, South Kingstown Police Department does a fantastic job of keeping this town safe. I grew up here in Wakefield, and as a kid, I could walk around at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight at night if I wanted to, and I was perfectly safe. Nothing bad would ever happen to me, and I, to this day, really appreciate that. I still do that. Well, I can do that. I'm not usually staying up that late nowadays, but at any rate. What I would like to talk about is that I am just making a plea that the South Kingstown Police Department is not assisting or complicit or any of those things in regards to the ICE deportations that are happening. There's a lot of good things that we've talked about at this meeting, so I don't want to put a damper on the mood, but I just want to briefly get this out of the way. A lot of this stuff, these deportations that are happening, they're not only immoral, they're illegal. There's no due process. People are getting deported without a trial, without anything. And one of the reasons why I feel the need to direct this at you guys is because I could be wrong.
Hey,
but-
Kai, if you
yes.
could, you could
Oh,
talk
yeah,
to
into
us.
the-
He
yeah.
hears you, he's listening, but
Gotcha.
typically it's at the council. Go ahead.
Gotcha.
Good job.
In Newport, I believe, I could be wrong, so if someone knows, please correct me, but the local police authorities assisted ICE in a raid on some men, I think. And there was also that, I think it was a student at Brown that was arrested, and they just get sent straight to a prison in El Salvador. And just, you know, this is cliche, but think for a moment if it was your mother, your father, sister, brother, even a friend of yours. Like, a lot of the times it's due to how they look. They have a tattoo that they think marks them as a gang member. If you look at me, someone might look at me and go, oh, you're Palestinian or an Arab or something because you have a beard, so we're going to deport you. And I know that sounds a little insane, but we're living in some pretty insane times right now. So as South Kingstown is a safe place, and I want it to stay that way. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kai. Come on up, Bob.
Bob Traeger, South Kingstown, Succotash Road. A couple of days ago, I was up in New Hampshire. It was a blizzard. I was driving through a blizzard. But I came back, actually, because I didn't want to miss another one of these meetings. But not because I got a million things to say, but I came to see if someone like that gentleman that was just up here is going to be getting up and talking about the most serious issue that this country has ever faced in my lifetime. I brought it up the last time I was here, and I was hoping that somebody would bring it up again. The due process situation and the deportation of individuals, I don't like the deportation part is one, that's a separate issue. Deporting if someone is done the things that create a situation that a person should be deported, that is fine. But if we can sit by and back as individuals in this country and know in our hearts that maybe 40% of that group that was brought to that, probably more than 40, I don't know if anybody got this due process. And we can't live, if we can live with that, that's the first biggest mistake in my lifetime that I've ever seen the United States make. The biggest. The rest of it, the tariffs and all that, we have control of that. The public will have control of that. Just stop buying. You'll see how quickly things change. And you can't stop someone that's, I don't want to criticize the president, okay? I don't like the president. I didn't like the president, I don't know how many years before he even ran for president. He's an individual that I have no use for. And I have less use for him now. But he knows how to talk with people. He knows how to get them on his side. He's a smart man that way. If anybody listened to Bill Maher this past Saturday on his program, he had an interview with the president, and he was very taken in a good way by the way the president presented himself and talked with him. He was and he gave some very good commentary, I thought, on that particular thing. But the fact is that he's behind things that are being done over and above due process that is probably causing the death of many, many, many people in the world today. And I don't claim to understand all that stuff, but only thing I can claim, and I don't have the great mind I never know what I'm going to say when I get up here. I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth. But when I was praying that somebody like this would get up today, because it spears my mind into he's already in the I give 100 speeches, on my own, and sometimes I think, gee, boy, if I only could get that out at the right time, to the right people. But credibility in this world is not an easy thing to achieve. You guys have credibility. You were elected. That's a good thing. But other people, you got to get to know somebody before you're going to give them credibility, aren't you? So, I mean, I have been fortunate in the last few years to talk to many people, with many people. I had an interesting conversation today. I was playing bridge today. I play bridge a couple of times a week. And I had a sit out on the bridge game the way it went, and I was talking with a gentleman, and we had a nice talk, and I mentioned a discussion group that's going on, and he's going to take an interest in it. He's going to go to it. The other thing I mentioned, I don't know if people overheard me, I was talking about C-SPAN. Do you realize it's amazing to me how many people don't even know what C-SPAN is? And it's the one place you can go and listen to the representatives and senators and the people that are making decisions. And you can get a real idea, at least look at them in person and hear the words coming out of their mouths. And sometimes it's shocking. And sometimes it's great. But I might say, I've always felt this for many years. We have a very apathetic country, a country that when it's good, I don't blame people for that either. And I don't blame people for not having enough time to do any of this stuff either. That's one thing about being 85, I'll give you that. I've got time. I can use, and I use it that way. I use it to try to know what's going on. And I know I'm sorry. I try to do the 5 minutes, but I could do 3 hours, not this way, but with any individual that is thinking about the problems of our country and is willing to talk about them, and that's what more people need to do. The more we do it, the more we'll realize how close we are in conjunction with our thoughts, and we'll be able to make the moves. We can't allow it to be walked over. And we're being walked over right now, folks. I mean, that guy isn't back. That's one person they're talking about. This has happened to umpteen numbers of people already in the country. Can't be allowed. Biggest problem this country has ever had in my lifetime.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, anyone else in the audience wish to speak? I invite you to just come on up.
Hi, Lisa Beth Sanford, member of BPAC, and I'm not really certain if I want to save some of it for the public hearing, for what Jay wants to do, Councilperson Jay, with the bike path.
Yeah, that's not a public hearing item.
Okay,
so
that's why I
definitely
wanted to
proceed right
double
here.
check on that one. But I had 2 items. The first one is I think is a public hearing item, and I'll come back for the other one, okay?
Okay. Which item's the public hearing? Just want to make sure you're
The
clear.
one regarding
Yeah,
the
that's
public
not a
hearing?
public hearing item.
Okay. I wanted,
Well, if you wish to speak about it, we ask that you do it here at this moment
Yeah.
while we're in public comment section.
that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so I can
What's-
speak about both items now.
What's the other
Yes,
item?
you got it.
What's
The other item is the walkability, the town council communications with RIDOT regarding
Oh, yeah.
108. And their 108, RIDOT is now putting in sidewalks. I'm sure you've seen it on Facebook,
Yep.
right? We're hoping that we can all work together and create not quite speed bumps or speed tables, but little crosswalks like we have on Main Street, that bumpy area within the crosswalks in the area between Columbia Street and School Street, or School Street and Columbia Street, depending upon which way you go through it.
Oh, no, I saw the email, but I was thinking on Old Mountain Field and 108.
Both are the same thing. Old Mountain Field starts at Old Mountain Field, and School Street is there. There's a crosswalk there.
Yep,
That's the School Street one, Old Mountain Field.
yep.
And then 108 is the whole corridor.
Yes.
And it continues over to the Guild Park,
Oh, yeah.
Park,
Where
and
that
that
new bump out
is
is.
Columbia,
Where there's a new bump out.
with a new bump, just along the bump outs.
Okay.
That'll be traffic calming. But we're hoping that we're all working with the state to make that happen. Okay, the second thing is an invitation to all council people to, number one, support the access, and we're working on that at BPAC. We really want, in fact, I'm going to be working with the Rec Commission their next meeting to create wayfinding for pedestrians and bicyclists throughout the town. So that's one of the things that we want you to join us with that one. We want to create a community that walks and bikes through all of our villages. And having that, not necessarily on an app, but maybe with very low-cost signage that bicyclists and pedestrians see, like on through striping or whatever, like trail signs, and not necessarily that cars will see and say, that's a great cut through. So we're working on that, and we want to join you. With that being said, that's my public comment.
All right.
Any
Thank
questions or any comments?
Lisa, thank you
Deb?
for your testimony tonight.
One sec, let's motion to add it to the agenda.
Well, aren't we already?
I'm actually.
Go ahead, Mike Ursullo, go ahead.
If you're going to discuss it now in public comment, you should add it to the agenda.
So I wasn't going to, I just wanted to make a note that what the item she is talking about for the Access Path Initiative is item 11D
Yeah.
tonight.
And I realize that, which is why I
Exactly.
wanted to say that I'm here in full support.
Excellent. Love it. And I'm looking forward to attending one of the BIPAC meetings soon.
Good.
Because I love
Great.
speed bumps too. I'm on board.
Yeah, we're all in about everyone being able to get around town.
Motion to add it to the agenda, just because
Well,
if
we're
I'm
going to
gonna say
discuss this
something,
as a new
I'm not.
business item. Perhaps you want to just wait, or you want to just bring it up now?
No, it's not about that. It's about the other item.
All right, the RIDOT one?
Yeah.
All right. Motion to add the RIDOT item to the agenda?
Yes, please.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Jim, could you?
Whoa, wait. Is it added? Did anyone vote to add that to the agenda?
I've seconded it.
All right, it's added. Go ahead.
Could you just, I don't know if you have any information, there was some conversation in the world of social media about the bump outs, and I read her,
Dorothy Hill sent an
Dorothy's
email.
right?
Yes,
I'm like, it wasn't you. The email about making it safe for the high schoolers to cross and not using it concludes with, let's not lose this opportunity to do something the right way or something like that. So I just wanted to, if we had any information we could share with the public at this time. Here comes Jamie Rabbit.
Thank you. I'll try and bring as much clarity I can to that project, understanding that it's a RIDOT project. With regards to the work that's being done, when we found out about that project, we reached out to RIDOT almost immediately to let them know that we worked with Weston and Sampson, and we had probably more in-depth plans as it relates to public safety and improvements there. RIDOT informed us that the work they are undertaking right now is associated with improvements for ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and is not in any shape, way, or form traffic calming, wayfinding, intersection improvements. They are upgrading crossings associated with ADA. We're working with RIPTA and RIDOT on Safe Streets for All and finalizing that plan on a state level to include some of those safety improvements to get that in that plan so that we can apply for funds under Safe Streets for All when those grant opportunities become available, which is just recently, but we haven't put an application together yet. So again, what you see being done right now are ADA improvements. They're not associated with intersection or crossings. They're basically sidewalk and intersection improvements for ADA.
Jamie, can ADA
Thank
improvements indirectly correlate with reduced speeds on roads? or not at all?
In most aspects, there are grade changes associated with sidewalks and the warning strips, the raised dots at those crosswalks. Again, our first attempt was to integrate what we were trying to work on with Safe Streets for All and RIPTA with RIDOT's improvements, but those projects are running, in essence, on independent paths. We tried to link them, and they're running independently.
Government's working.
So ADA improvements does not cause any traffic calming results here? I would think maybe it would, no?
There could be a slight correlation there. I don't want to go out too far over my skis with regards to saying there is a traffic calming relationship with an improvement at a intersection with a curb cut. But again, the mere improvement of a crosswalk at a curb cut could have some implications on traffic calming and public safety. There's more to traffic calming than just that ADA improvement.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Did DOT reach out to the town at all before they started doing this?
No.
No.
But these are town roads?
So
These are state roads.
Oh, that's right.
I'm glad we added this to the agenda. So the repaving of 108 in that section is a separate project from the ADA improvements, correct?
Correct.
So there's multiple projects happening at the same time that are not coordinating with Safer Streets, correct? That's okay. Understand.
Now, on a positive note, Jim, Manny, and I attended a meeting with RIDOT on 138
Well, they didn't go, right.
work on improvements associated with that segment from, in essence, from Kingston Village all the way out to the bridge in West Kingston in the Amtrak station. So we are at the ground level again with them on that project.
Okay. That we
Why don't you have Rich Bourbonnais get up and finish, because we have been in touch with our IDOT. I mean, there's a lot of things running parallel.
Yeah.
Jamie Rabbit's working on one end, Rich is working on another one, I'm working on one, so.
Yeah.
But the DOT has been very responsive to our request.
Yeah,
But-
and they did send us plans for all of this, but these plans are tied in with a statewide sort of package of ADA improvements, just like Jamie said. There is one improvement that's going in that is a traffic calming measure, and that are flashing signs at the Old Mountain Field crossing, where everybody has problems, right?
Yeah.
So it is one of those blinking lights. In fact, we just received a request to do a lane shift there as they run the wire across the road. They're going to do it this week while school's out. The concern was that they were going to take up parking spaces and all those things. So that's happening now. So that is part of that. And what we discussed in the field, and Jim was out there, and we walked much of this site, they started saying, and this, by the way, this has been 3 years I've been on them to do this road. I mean, it's been a long time. And it kept, you know, we're going to do it, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. When this ADA stuff came out, I said, you know, now's the time, right? Of course. But they weren't necessarily interested, and as the discussion kept going on and on and on, they came down, they met with us, and and they have been very cooperative. But what it was we're going to do sections. We're going to come through and repave the whole thing at some point, but let's now clean up some of these sections, particularly in front of the library, which is the absolute worst road in town. And then there are other little sections they were going to do, and then they came back and said, you know what, we may just do the whole thing now. So they're trying to get it to work, but all of this will happen when the improvements are done. That's what we've been told. It'll either be some sections more of a permanent in front of the library. That'll be like curb to curb permanent. The other sections may be patching, and then later on they'll come back in a year or two and do the whole thing. Okay. But it could be that they do the whole thing now. Okay? And what happens, a lot of times, and this happens a lot, it's they roll it into other contracts they have. So they might have a contract in Situate, for all we know, and they'll come down and then they'll do this whole section of road. That happens often. They have some extra dollars, they throw it in, the contractor's hired, they have the numbers, they have everything, and they say, go do that road as well, and that's what will probably happen. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. I just want to emphasize, again, and I know I briefed the council on this, so you guys already know this, but, so DOT has been very responsive to our request. So I think Rich alluded to it 2 weeks ago, there were 10 employees of DOT, all wearing the orange, yellow vest that they have, walking with Jamie, walking with Rich, me, and we walked the entire length of Main Street up towards Route 1. And they're saying, what can we do to help you, to improve signage, striping, blinking lights, the bike path crossings. We asked for one thing that they're looking at, but I'm not sure we're gonna get it, but I don't want to let it out yet. But they've been very responsive to that. Route 108, that road is a mess. It's a hazard to elderly people that are crossing it. They came down within hours of us asking, and they sent down a team of engineers. That was supposed to be on for the traffic improvement plan for next spring, which it still is, Route 108, pretty much the entirety of it. But they were proactive and said, we'll repave this 800-foot section now at our cost, well north of 100,000, maybe 150,000 on their dime, to just get it done now, right now. Route 138, that's been on the traffic improvement plan since 1997. It's been a stalemate for the town and DOT since 1997. Nearly 30 years. They're doing it, and it's gonna start next year. All the way from Route 108, Kingstown Road, all the way down into West Kingston to Route 2, including the bridge where the railroad tracks are, and there's a smaller bridge where the Chapuxet River is down by the coffee place over there. They can expand that. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and they're spending a lot of money on the town, and we're very hopeful they'll make it a much safer town as well. And they're doing a pedestrian traffic study, by the way, for the entire town at no cost to us.
And Roy, I just want to correct one thing. It may have sounded like I made the statement that they didn't cooperate with us. They are cooperating with us, as Mr. Manning had said. It's just on the ADA improvements. They sent us a set of plans initially without our input. We responded to those, letting them know we had much broader, larger plans and aspirations than just fixing a few of the crosswalks and some of the AGA striping and variable warning strips. And that's when we realized that, to Rich's point, was added to another project, and that project was just associated with those ADA improvements. In essence, didn't go out into the traveled way. To Jim's point, they have been very cooperative, and they are listening.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. All right. We still are in public comment, so if anyone in the audience who hasn't spoken yet wishes to speak, I invite you to come on up. All right. Seeing none, we're going to move now to item 10. A is a public hearing continued from November 26, 2024, January 27, and February 24, 2025, relative to proposed amendments to the Town Code, Chapter 2, Administration, Section 2-41, Historic District Commission as follows. This amendment would expand the authority of the Historic District Commission as follows. The commission is also authorized to promote historic preservation throughout the town by providing advisory assistance to owners of historic properties on matters of historic preservation or as otherwise authorized by the town council. Murray Gates, Chair of the Historic District Commission, I believe is here tonight. Murray, if you are, I believe you're prepared to speak, come on up. We also have our legal counsel here, and we have the planning director, Jamie Rabbit, to help answer any questions. So go ahead, Murray.
Yeah, I think, Jamie, you were going to lead on this one, weren't you? So I am? All right. Got the wires crossed. Yeah, so I don't know if we have to go through the history for this. Murray Gates as an introduction, Chair of the Historic District Commission. But very briefly, the history is, we came in front of you as each of the boards and commissions are allotted one time per year, and we had our first session with you, I think it was October of last year, where we presented essentially what is the roadmap that we use within the HDC to continue to improve upon preservation in South Kingstown. And that comes directly from the comprehensive plan. So we pulled word for word the action item list from the comprehensive plan. And what we reviewed with you was our progress and where we wanted to go with that. And then that was followed with an ask, and the ask was, okay, the comprehensive plan essentially does one thing. It says to the bodies of government, including you folks, here are the recommendations that the townspeople have put on paper in the form of a comprehensive plan. Now let's promulgate this in the form of updates to the town's ordinances. So that's what essentially our ask was, and said, the comprehensive plan is asking the HDC do all these things that are currently not captured in the town's ordinance. Let's do this, our proposal. Let's update the town ordinance so that it reflects what the comprehensive plan is asking us to do. Simple as that. We postponed the decision on that. I think coming out of that meeting, President McEntee was keen on passing it, but there was a recommendation that the town's council go back and draft some recommended language for updating the zoning ordinance. He came back with a recommendation that you have in front of you. There was a meeting where some other testimony was presented, and then we were continued until tonight. So that's how we got here. I'm happy to ask any clarifying questions, particularly as some time has passed and perhaps it's not fresh in your minds.
All right, thank you, Maury. Any questions for Maury up here? All right, Jamie Rabbit, come on up. Maury, just hang close by if we need you.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Just one clarity on the proposed amendment to the ordinance. This is not a regulatory change. This gives the Historic District Commission no additional regulatory authority. As Mr. Gates has stated, they're just trying to codify some of the non-regulatory things that they do as a Historic District Commission and what they could do as a valuable resource as a commission with some members who are a wealth of knowledge. So again, it's not broadening the regulatory responsibilities. In essence, it's an attempt to codify some of the things that they've done over the past few years on the non-regulatory end.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Mike Ursillo, we got a pretty good memo from your office about how the HDC came about, its authority, the state law and the town ordinance which govern how it can operate, and the town's ability to sort of potentially designate larger areas in which they can use their authority for. Can you speak a little bit on that?
Right, and I think this dovetails with what Jamie did. The ordinance change that's before you tonight does not expand the historic district. It doesn't give the Historic District Commission the ability to tell property owners what they can or can't do with their property outside of the currently defined, which is a small area of town, historic district. What this, all this does, so it's non-regulatory, as Jamie said. All this does is lets the public know in terms of its duties, as if there were an ordinance on this, it would be akin to the council creating a commission and then saying, here's your charge. In this case, by law, by state law, it all has to be by ordinance. All this does is says, hey, by the way, we have this body out there called the Historic District Commission. If you're outside of the bounds of the Historic District and you want some advice, some help on things relating to your property that may be historic in value, we're more than happy to provide that advice. That's what this is.
But they can do that without the amendment we're considering tonight.
Absolutely. They're doing it now. They can do it without the amendment. It's really more to put the public on notice that this is out there, this service, so to speak, is available, and anyone looking at this and going online or whatever would see, oh, okay, they do this too.
And they've been doing this, providing this service, despite this language being absent from the current ordinance. Is that correct?
Unless I'm wrong, I believe, yes, the commission has been assisting other individuals who are outside of the district, other property owners.
Oh, Maury, you got
that one? An example of this is something that we talked about previously, the awards that we have given out in the past to property owners that have done something special with historic preservation on their property. That's an outreach, a type of outreach. It's a type of education, letting people know, here's an example of good preservation for you to follow. So that certainly is not part of our regulatory authority. It's more things like that that we're looking to do. So yes, short answer to your question, we have done things that are in this realm. It's really a question of saying, shouldn't the responsibilities captured in the ordinance reflect what we're doing?
Okay. Good.
Just a couple of things. Mike, aside from the testimony that we had at the February 24 hearing, and one of the participants particularly was the director of Habitat for Humanity who opposed it, we've also had 2 pieces of litigation in the last 6 or 7 years where the town lost appeals from decisions that were made specifically with respect to historic commission or historic issue overreach. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm not sure it was overreach, but it was along those lines, yes.
Go ahead.
I have a question about if we were to make any adjustments to what you've proposed, would it require another public hearing?
It depends. If it's substantive, yes. If it's not substantive, no. If you're talking about changing some words around and, the basic content and the format.
So I feel like...
You can always, this is a public hearing. You can always make changes as long as the change is something that the public would never have expected you, if you go in a totally different direction.
See, I think I'm not... do you want me to say it now, or do you want me to wait for people to... I think it could say something more like the commission serves as a resource to educate the community about historic preservation throughout the town and may provide advisory assistance if upon request. And then it just makes it very much like a educatory resource offering body. And I understand where people might feel uncomfortable, and we certainly don't want to slow projects down or slow projects that actually create things that we're desperate in need of, like affordable housing. But I think there's a middle ground of like a slightly less authoritative language. Like if you say may provide, serves as a resource upon a request, then you have people seeking the HCC instead of them saying, hey, what's that? Stop, But that's kind of where I thought it would be a middle ground, but I don't know where you're all at.
Anything to add here, Jamie?
Just 2 items with regards to the testimony we received a few months ago. Habitat for Humanity, I'm not aware of them being an applicant before the Planning Board, Zoning Board, or specifically the Historic District Commission before. So I'm not sure where their testimony came from and whether it was just hearsay. Second aspect was the permitting associated with Green Street. That permit was issued in 29 days by the Historic District Commission. So for someone to say there was a delay in the permitting by the Historic District Commission, from receipt to permit, 29 days. And they held a special meeting to expedite that application. So,
I don't think the substantive issue was delay.
yeah.
What stops us from having an issue like we had with the Johnny Cake Center with this?
So
The issue with the Johnny
I was
Cake
asking,
Center,
I'm
but
sorry.
the issue with the
So-
Johnny Cake Center was that they didn't include something on their application that delayed them. That was what was said in October to us.
Gotcha. Could you answer the question?
So with regard to the Johnny Cake Center, when that application went before the Historic District Commission, that was acted on in 29 days with a finding that there were no requirements associated with historic preservation items. The issue came up before the Planning Board when they stipulated conditions. There was a condition there that wasn't, in essence, regulatory. It was a notice regarding the fact that the property had a national historic category that may affect future funding. But it wasn't a regulatory item that prevented them from proceeding. They appealed that based on that language that they felt shouldn't be in that motion. but it wasn't a regulatory hurdle that prevented them from pulling a building permit. They could have moved forward with a building permit.
Thank you, Jake.
So it was a condition that should have been included as a finding of fact?
I think so, Rory. If you looked back and we had the ability to go back in time, that should have, in all likelihood, been in the findings of fact versus the actual condition. It ended up in the condition. We had legal counsel at those meetings. Again, we can't, I wish sometimes we could go back and Monday morning quarterback on some of the decisions and language we use, but we have to do that that night and live with that language. Yeah.
All right, I got one more question. I believe there's vacancies on the Historic District Commission. Is that correct? Is there still vacancies?
Murray, yes. They could use a few new members.
And how many active members are there? 4?
4 right now.
Of a board of up to 7?
Yes. 4 constitutes a quorum, so if they miss a member, they cannot act in their regulatory manner.
Apply today.
Good.
I do just want to quickly note on that. We do have one applicant. We're just waiting on his voter registration to take into effect at the beginning of May. And then we can bring him in for that.
I have a question for Mike. What are our options with respect to this proposed language?
As with all ordinance amendments, you could move forward with the language as proposed, you could amend the language as also proposed, or you could decline to amend and leave it exactly the way it is.
I'm going through my emails and was trying to locate, we received an email from some developers, some builders on this issue. Does anybody remember that?
I think it was a mortgage person. For sure, one person was mortgage.
Well, we received an email from the Rhode Island Builders Association. Does anybody remember that?
I remember the mortgage guy.
I don't remember the mortgage guy, but we got a big email from the Rhode Island Builders Association, and maybe I'll just look for that. And I did just send everybody else another email that I had found from Christian Blaney, who expressed his feelings about this. So that's really what I'm trying to find, because I know they had expressed that they were opposed to this, and I wanted to review it.
So, but it doesn't, the language change doesn't gain broader jurisdiction of the HDC. It just increases the language to educate the community that there are very knowledgeable people who might be able to help you if you wanted that help.
I got a question on the language.
That's the way I
quick.
understand it.
This last phrase here, as otherwise authorized by the town council, does that mean we can empower the Historic District Commission to take actions without the need of a public hearing?
So anything that you would authorize them to do, you would have to do in public. It would have to be at a council meeting. And I think all that contemplated was in terms of, things like advertising their ability, making the public aware of what it is that they can do. It's very broad, authorized. The council is control of this ordinance like all other ordinances. And you could delete that clause if you think.
Well, I guess what I'm asking you is, what does it mean? What does it allow us to do without the need of a public hearing? Because it's there, we're having a public hearing now.
No, if in fact there is something that is beyond what this prior sentence says about promoting historic preservation, providing advisory assistance of matters of historic, if you go beyond that, it would require a new public hearing. That is correct.
Okay. All right, any other questions before we open this up? Go ahead.
One more for Mike. Correct me if I'm wrong, right now, your office and the planning board is doing a review of all of our zoning and planning ordinances to deal with the package that was passed last year.
right? Not only that, and then we sent you a recent memo
Yes,
on
that was-
all of this year's updates. So yes, the answer is yes, we're doing a very comprehensive review of everything that involves land use because of all the changes at the General Assembly.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. For what it's worth, my position is going to be to take Mike's option that he identified to us to decline to add this language to the current statute. Aside from the issues that have come up in the public hearings since we undertook this, there's also a comprehensive review of statutes that were passed by the General Assembly in '23. There's also a package pending that he just sent us a memo on in this legislative session that has not passed yet. And it also relates to the discussion that we had a few weeks ago. I mentioned to the council not wanting to silo particular responses to a particular issue when there are larger things going on. And one of the things we've also talked about is combining zoning and planning, which is another option under the 2023 legislative package. And with all of that going on, taking out this one piece and adding to it, I think is a mistake, particularly where council has told us that the Historic Commission can already do these things without this additional language. So.
All right.
I suppose that's a motion.
Well, it's a public hearing, so we do got to open it up. If anyone has any thoughts before that? All right, this is a public hearing, so anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item specifically, I invite you to come on up. We just ask that you introduce yourself, and we're going to limit you to 5 minutes. With that said, first come, first serve. Come on up. All right, seeing none, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
What? What'd you say, Murray?
Am I able to make public comment?
Yeah.
Come on up, Murray.
So it was at staff recommendation that I didn't address the testimony that was provided and only stick to the topic of what our intent is to make sure that the comprehensive plan is reflected in the zoning ordinance. But given the difficulty I've had with communicating you folks because of public meeting laws and not having the ability to be able to approach you like the developers approached you, this is my only opportunity to share with you that if you look at that testimony, which I was advised not to respond to, it was completely irrelevant and non-factual. As Jamie had mentioned, all of the difficulties that came up with Green Street, which seems to be the most salient thing to you folks, was nothing to do with the HDC. It was the planning board decision. We caught the applicant with an application that was not factual, and we told the planning board about that. That's all we did. That was the limit of our interaction. And for some reason, the tag of us being a constraint to the application of an affordable housing project has stuck with us. And that's really unfortunate that you can't see through that. And I'm being very pointed here because this is completely irrelevant to what we're asking. And if you can't stand up here and make the additions to the zoning ordinance that have nothing to do with our regulatory authority, that shows a clear lack of backbone. And I'm ashamed. I really am.
All right, anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Anyone wish to respond or make a motion to close the public hearing? Go ahead.
Just in response, Mr. Gates did testify at the first hearing and had the same freedom to submit to the entire council in writing, just as any other member of the public does. Motion to close the hearing.
All right, we got a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All
Yes.
in favor? Go ahead.
Oh, about the motion?
About the motion.
No, go ahead. We can close it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the public hearing is now closed. What are we thinking? Go ahead.
Motion to decline to add the language to section 2-41.
All right, we got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes.
So it's just really unfortunate because I don't think any changes will be made, and I think the intent was a really good thing, and I think if you go back, it was something that Rory really wanted to make change, and in fact, that wanted to change that night. And I don't know how it got caught up in something that I think Mr. Gates is right. It's not really what it is. It's a very benign adjustment to reflect their work. I would be open. I understand the concerns. I understand the importance of not holding up projects. I understand all the future land regs may change. This is adding benign, educational, feel-good language to their charge. That's all that it is to me. I would be open to making it less pointy so that it would reflect their good work. They do great work. That presentation was excellent in the fall, and I felt that the people on the council at the time really appreciated that good work and wanted to make that change. So it may not pass HTC, and I apologize for the politicalization of something very kind and educative, because I do think that that's what happened here. I would ask the council to vote no on this amendment that's currently the motion before us, and make some benign language to compromise. And I think there are people here who understand that and could do that, and we wouldn't have to be the bad guys here, because you look more political than I think you want to be on this issue.
I don't, Deb, I respectfully, I do not understand how you are equating this to a political decision. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I would also like just to comment, Murray, thank you for the hard work that you do on the Historic District Commission. I think that this council is in agreement that we need to send you more members in this district or our town. We need to do a better job at trying to find some more people to join you on that commission so we can support the hard work that you're doing already. Whether this passes or not tonight, I don't want you to think that your work should be diminished at all. I would absolutely disagree with the characterization from Councilwoman Bergner about this being politicized when we have a difference of opinion. But again, that's a difference of opinion. And I want you to know that we do support you in the work that you do, even if this passes or not. So I just want you to know, and I know that's what I want you to know. So thank you. That's what I feel.
I think really the biggest political, the biggest political thing that happened with this is that we're not allowed to each individually meet with somebody. And so when we were all approached to meet, we had to say, this is not the way that, or I had to say, this is not the way we do things. You cannot individually meet with me and then Deb and then Mike, and that can't happen. We have to do it here, or you can send an email. And so if that's political, because that was when I got, it was not a really comfortable thing to have to say, but it needed to be said, and that is a backbone. And so I really have difficulty with the characterization of this either being political or us not having a backbone, because standing up and saying we can't do this is what needed to happen.
All right, any other discussion?
We will probably not pass educative advocacy language tonight, which I don't understand at all. And Patty, I hear you, and I'm not talking about any sort of OMA piece, because I agree with you about that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people being pressured or communicated with from other people to change from let's just put the language in that reflects their work. It was a really simple idea in October that somehow got tumbled into something. It almost sounds like they're doing the wrong thing, and they're trying to be helpful to all of the people in the town.
I understand, but when you talk about like catching this error and pulling it back, and then...
I didn't say catch an error.
No, that's what Mr. Gates said about the Green Street project. He caught that error and reported it. So that seems like, you know, if that's sort of the function, then...
All right, I just want to talk a little bit here about this particular item. Now, just a little bit of the history. We met with the Historic District Commission, I believe, around October 2024. In the course of that conversation, I was in agreement with sort of their intent moving forward. At that time, we were not aware that it required an ordinance, a public hearing, to change certain language that the Historic District Commission had authority to do. That was number one. Number two, we didn't have the potential, because we didn't know it required an ordinance and a change in their authority, we didn't have language at our disposal to look at, potentially discuss further. But as time has gone on and you sort of think through things, you have sort of an eye for what's important in the community, what's important to our constituents. I ultimately thought that it is in the best interest of the community that we do not expand the authority of the Historic District Commission to include this language. I believe they already are empowered to do what this potential language change would allow them to do. So in that thought, I believe this language addition or amendment is really moot. I don't expect you to abandon efforts that you've already been undertaking that sort of align with this amendment here. We're going to see whether that's to be seen as you proceed forward. Hopefully you fill those vacancies, and hopefully you continue to carry out the way you've been operating with the HDC. That is yet to be seen. But this is frankly just a disagreement as to whether to expand the ordinance to include the language that you wish to be included. My position is I'm going to be voting in favor of the motion, which is to reject the amendment that is contemplated here tonight. Those are my final thoughts. If there's any other communication, sounds like no. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Nay.
That passes 4-1. Okay. We're now going to move to public hearing item B. A public hearing relative to an application to perform construction activities within 25 feet of historic cemetery in accordance with the South Kingstown Town Code, Chapter 14, Planning, Article 4, Historical and Archaeological Cemeteries and Burial Sites in accordance with RIGL 45-24.1-4, application by Kingston Farm Properties, LLC, for as-built approval of utility trenching within 25 feet of South Kingstown Historic Cemetery number 16, located at 262 Liberty Lane, Assessors Plot 24-2, Lot 67. Jamie Rabbit, you want to sort of walk us through this, and then we'll hear from the applicant?
Thank you, Council President, for the introduction. I'm just going to fly at 10,000 feet really quickly and bring you down to the ground level. Our department, through the zoning department, found out about activity on Liberty Lane associated with the construction of a utility trench for a greenhouse and new infrastructure for the applicant. What you see above you is an aerial photo from Google Earth that shows the Amtrak station to the top left corner, Amtrak, and to the lower part you'll see Liberty Lane that runs right to left or left to right at the lower portion of the screen. You also see a small red box that's outlined in a dashed line. That's the approximate location of the subject of this application. Just dropping down a little closer, and we're zooming in here. We get down to that location, and then we get down to the current facility here. So again, you saw a field in 2023, and now you see some of the infrastructure and buildings that are being constructed here. Associated with this is an effort by the landowner to go underground to those greenhouses versus overhead, so we commend them on that aspect. But that required the location and utilization of an existing pole. And instead of moving that pole, which was right along the front of the cemetery and moving it 25 feet. They moved it, they didn't move it, they placed a new pole 2 feet away from the existing pole. Then unfortunately, the applicant's contractor dug a utility trench from that location towards the greenhouses. What the ordinance says is when you're within 25 feet of a historic cemetery, there's a permitting process. Their contractor was not aware of that. The minute it was flagged, the landowner became extremely cooperative, stopped all work, and immediately entered the permitting process, went through the Historic District Commission, who processed that application in a very timely manner, coordinated with the State Office of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, and they came to the conclusion that since the trench was already dug, that there was no evidence within the trench, that they saw no need to do further disturbance and relocate the trench. That they would be comfortable with putting the conduit in the open trench, backfilling that trench, looming, seeding, and moving on. But it does require an application, and ultimately the jurisdiction lies with the town council. So again, the applicant is here, so I don't intend to completely speak for them, but I can answer questions that the council may have, and if I can't answer them, again, the applicant is present, and they should be offered every opportunity to speak.
I just wanted to say that I went out there this weekend, and I did very carefully look at the trench, and I didn't see any, I mean, there was nothing disturbing in the trench that made me feel like it shouldn't be able to be filled in, and that they should be able to get their operations going, because that's
In
very
the nature of
important.
that pole relocation, any underground utility from that pole, even if it did a sweep like it was shown on the plan versus a straight line into the site, still would have technically required a permit because that pole is within 25 feet of the perimeter of the cemetery. The road is within 25 feet of the perimeter of that cemetery.
Well, I actually heard from somebody, because it looks almost like a burial mound of a cemetery, and it was explained to me that some of the topsoil was taken out. Is that true? Do you know that?
Topsoil?
The topsoil around the cemetery, was that taken out? Because it seems like a bit higher.
So historically, both east, south, and west has been tilled and manipulated over time through agricultural purposes. So the cemetery will appear higher than the surrounding land. And if you look at the aerial photo, this is from 2023. That's a street view from 2023. So someone between 2023 and now has brought that cemetery back and is actually caring for it. So I think it's a big difference between 2023 and its present condition now.
Yeah,
So someone's
it
caring
looks
for that.
very nice.
Are there any questions of staff?
Just one, Jamie. With respect to what we're being asked to approve, it's just what's already been done. That's the as-built part of it?
Correct.
Because there was a reference in your memo that said, and as-built. And I think you meant to say,
This is the
and.
as-built condition?
Right.
Presently, yes.
And that's all that they're asking for, is what's already been done. There's not going to be something more done in the future.
There's no additional trenching required within the 25 feet of this historic cemetery. It would just be putting the conduit in, backfilling, pulling the lines, looming, seeding, and walking away from the site. And in essence, it should never need to be touched again.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Are the applicants the owner of the cemetery, or is that sort of like not owned by anybody?
We did a little research there. It's not owned by the municipality, based on my knowledge, nor owned by the landowner that surrounds it, east, west, and south.
I was just asking because I was curious who might have did the landscape mowing or trimming. Was it you?
Yeah, so we've mostly been
Oh,
doing that.
come on up to the microphone.
You
Yeah,
did.
so so what happened was the Joe Tibbetts, who used to own that field, before he passed away, the neighbors told me that he would maintain the cemetery. But since he had passed away a few years prior, that's why it had gotten overgrown. So the neighbors basically told us, you know, you guys are the new landowners.
Your job.
It's your, yeah, it's your responsibility now. So I'm not going to take all the credit. One of our neighbors did help, but yeah, we did.
Andrew Kinnaman helped.
Yeah, Andrew Kinnaman, one of our neighbors. And yep, and we're committed to, you know, keeping it mowed and maintained for people to visit.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing the volunteer work for property you
Yeah,
don't
of course.
own.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Hey, if you wish to add anything other than what's already been discussed, feel free. I think we have a general idea what's going on here. But
Yeah, I think Jamie summarized it well, and my name's Albie Brandon too. I just wanted to state that for the record. But yeah, or Albert Brandon. But yeah, no, I think Jamie did a good job explaining it, and we're happy to answer any questions. But it,
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you because you took a path that wasn't very common to solve a problem. I mean, this doesn't happen all the time, and I feel like we told you it had never been done, or you know, and I just very few people take responsibility and act with integrity and handle things that like are complicated, and this kind of was a little extra. So just want to say thank you for being really great, kind people to the community.
yeah, and we apologize. We definitely would have gone down a different path.
No.
It would have probably started with when the designer from Rhode Island Energy, you know, we would have informed them.
Yeah.
It's a little bit sad that they don't know the state laws when they're, you know, because that's where the designer wanted to put it.
No worries. Great job.
So they should educate themselves.
Did you learn your lesson about historical or cemeteries?
Yes.
Well, I think that it sounds like we should.
We'll be an advocate too for letting other people know this
There
role.
are positions
Fantastic.
on the HDC. I don't know if you want to join, but one of you
We're
could
pretty
be,
busy farming,
since
but
you'd like to be voluntold, you can flip a coin later and sign up.
Just in case you don't have enough to do.
all right, so this is a public hearing. So anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this, I invite you to come on up. We just ask you introduce yourself. We're going to limit you to 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Debbie Suggs. I am the Rhode Island Historic Cemetery Commissioner for Washington County, one of the 3 historic cemetery commissioners. This cemetery was brought to my attention. This project was brought to my attention at the last commission meeting to me to go over and take a look at the cemetery and make sure it was within the state guidelines of 25 feet guidelines that was talked about. That, I might add, it's #1 on the Historic Cemetery Commission law things. The first FAQ, the absolute first FAQ, is that people should not be digging or going near cemeteries within 25 feet. So, while I don't blame the property owners, I'm really concerned with the nonchalantness of the contractor did it and, oh, well, thanks for doing that. It's a problem. It's a problem in South Kingston that continually I hear about from people, people in the community that come to the commission, the state commission, that, oh, after the fact, the cemetery, oh, there's a cemetery, but the house was already built, or the driveway was already put over it, and all this and all that. It matters. It matters. And it's more than maybe, it's not the property owners, and I appreciate the cleaning. Just as an FYI, in 2023, I was also asked to look at that property, the condition of the cemetery. It is considered your property. So it is considered the responsibility of the property owners to maintain a cemetery. That is in the state's guidelines. Many people, as we know, don't do it. But it is that, and I appreciate greatly you guys for doing that. But I'm also concerned about that it's very nonchalant that a contractor, any contractor, came in, did something that, quite frankly, is illegal. And there's going to be no punishment, no nothing for this contractor. There's people's family there. More importantly, there's South Kingston history there. This cemetery dates back to the early 1800s. When they were digging that trench, did they really know there were no bodies around there? And one thing people say, well, I only saw 5 gravestones. Well, historically, especially in farming communities, which we were, you didn't have gravestones. You buried your people, and you went back and tilled your farm. So when they were digging up that trench and getting ready to put whatever they were putting in there, do you really know there were no bodies in there? Were you there when they dug the trench? Does anybody really know that bodies weren't dug up there? We don't know that. So, well, I appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate the farming efforts and things like that. I'm asking this commission, I would ask this historic commission and anything else to really consider this and really start, if not punishing the property owners, these contractors know it's the first thing. They know that they shouldn't be digging near these cemeteries. We seem to have a policy here that we do it and then apologize later. And it's not right, and it's illegal, and it's going to keep going. South Kingston has over 250 known cemeteries, but we have one of the highest numbers of missing cemeteries in the state. They're missing because people are building their houses and their garages and their pools and their whatever, and saying, "Oh, I didn't realize it was there. No, oh no, I didn't run into any bodies." And we're like, "Okay, well, all right, this time it will be okay." At what point is it no longer okay? And I apologize, I can't stay much longer, but I have to get home to my mother.
Just one question.
So, ask away. I'm here for questions.
Before you go.
Absolutely.
But I think some of the initiating things was the pole was, so it starts with the utility. Maybe.
Starts with whomever it is, absolutely.
Correct. So like if they had moved it 25 feet, they would be in compliance. And so shouldn't the utility company know what to do?
Absolutely. Everybody, the victim of this, other than the people who are buried there, quite frankly, the property owners, because they're having to sit here tonight and explain what's going on.
Right.
This is at no fault of your own. I mean, I saw that cemetery with the trees on grave sites and things like that. So cheers to you for cleaning it. But it also needs to be somebody's job to say, hey, utility people, whatever, this is a problem, and it's not just going to be laughed off. The utility people built the pole, but the contractor, I went there today. It can't be more than 4 feet from the cemetery. So even the contractor after the utility people, you could say, oh, you know what, they did something wrong. Doesn't mean you have to do the next thing wrong. Doesn't mean you have to be the next person to do it. And it's done, and I'm looking forward to it, but I just concern myself, and I've heard it more people say, well, I didn't find any, there was up in Matunic, the building of the driveway, oh, there were no people in the grave. How do I know there were no people? When you dug up the rocks, there's missing cemeteries all over this town, and some of these cemeteries are Revolutionary War heroes. How many, they're gone. These cemeteries are gone. I've looked for them, I know they're gone. And they're, very lovely houses over it, and I have a lovely house. So I don't challenge anybody having a lovely house. Just be aware of what we're doing here. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
Do you communicate with, I was just thinking about, do you communicate with people who actually own properties where there are historic cemeteries to say you're obligated to maintain, you're not allowed to do this? Like, does your organization do any of that?
So
I'm trying to figure out how to solve the problem.
The Historic Commission, Rhode Island Historic Cemeteries Commission's job is to index cemeteries, historical cemeteries, to advise to projects and to make recommendations to the state regarding future cemetery laws, rules, requirements, things like that. The hope is that contractors, we don't have any police or authority. So our hope is that contractors are following the law, and if they're not following the law, the people with the authority to force them to are following up on it. Are saying, hey, so-and-so, you shouldn't have done that. Here is the penalty for doing that. The commission itself is an advisory commission.
Okay, I'm still trying to figure out how to solve the problem. So, so is there a way to note, I don't know, Jim, is there a note when people buy the piece of property that you're buying also the cemetery, which then requires some obligation? I mean, is there a way to do that with each sale, or
it depends on the property, I believe.
Yeah, and title, I assure you, I do a lot of closings. That question comes up at every closing. You have to, if you're a seller and you're selling to someone and there is a cemetery on your property, you've got to disclose that fact.
Was that disclosed to these lovely?
I have no idea.
You knew that your property, you had to have, your title company would not have, because there's going to be an exception in your title policy for the cemetery.
I'm just trying to figure out how they didn't realize that they were supposed to be the maintainers.
Their property, I only know because I had to do the research whether the commission could go in and do a cemetery cleanup a couple of years ago. And we could not because it was private property owned by I don't have a clue if they were the property owners. It was a privately owned piece of property.
Okay.
So we could not do a cleanup unless we got in touch with the property owners. And that is not something the commission does. I was facilitating that for them, but that is really, it was their neighbors. That and obviously they did. They helped you with the cleanup. The neighbors follow up on that, not on myself. I do that sort of outside of the commission. People will contact me and say, hey, do you know anything about this cemetery? And it's public, private. It's private, don't go on it without permission.
Okay.
I want to try and get some clarification. You said before that they do own the cemetery.
If it's on your property, unless there's something in your property documents that say this cemetery, you own all this property with the exclusion of this cemetery that's owned by the Jones family or by this or that. When we researched this cemetery a couple of years ago for a potential cleanup, it was a private cemetery owned by the property owners. I don't know if they're the property owners or not.
Okay.
I didn't know at that time who the property owners were, is probably a better way to say it.
Okay. And that's what I needed to clarify.
Yes.
Because it sounded like you said they are the owners.
No, I meant whomever the owners were the owners of the cemetery at that time.
But when they bought the property, there's also meets and bounds that actually say it goes from this line to that line to that line.
It would have to be in there. You didn't
do that?
No. Literally, we're just looking up who owns this property and what's the boundaries, and is the cemetery included in that? And yes, it was.
Thank you.
And I didn't look at who the person was.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close, yep.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, the public hearing is now closed.
Motion to approve item 10B.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes.
You're all set.
Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, that's now going to move us to item C, a public hearing relative to proposed amendments to the Town Code, Chapter 12, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, Article 2, Unruly Gatherings, as shown on Exhibit 1 attached here 2. Chief Moynihan, come on up. Mike Ursillo, we're going to go to you to kick this one off here.
So this issue came up when a nearby property owner came to the council with a complaint. What the complaint was about, the fact that there's language in the specific ordinance defining public nuisance that said, that confined the nuisance to the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. This particular neighbor's complaint was he believed there was a nuisance with hundreds of individuals at a property next to him that took place during the day. In other words, outside of those hours. So based on that, you sent it back to my office. We really just did a very simple cross-out of the hours of 10 to 6. If you were to adopt this ordinance as amended, it would now be effective 24/7, basically. But then you independently raised the issue during prior hearings on this relative to how many individuals would constitute a gathering. Your current ordinance has 5. That was modeled after an ordinance, I believe in Narragansett. You then all asked whether or not we could give you some background on what other communities do along the lines of unruly gathering ordinances. We found 7 other towns that do have these ordinances and provided all that information to you in a memo. I hope this memo you did get,
We got this.
unlike the earlier one. So for purposes of this evening, and I'm certainly going to let the chief speak, you have really 2 decisions to make. Do you want to keep the number at 5, because you're free to change that this evening? And do you want to strike the language between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.? Those are the 2 items before you this evening.
All right, thank you, Mike. Chief, welcome.
Good evening. Yes, so when we talk about these, the unruly gatherings, they're complaint-driven, you know, and so majority, and I would have to say probably over 90% are a result of a neighbor calling, someone calling in some type of disturbance and the officers investigating. The number at 5, you know, it's not in looking at these when there is a disturbance, there's much more than 5 in the situations, but some of the occasions they're on private property. They might be having it inside the house or behind the house, where, you know, officers aren't going to have a clear indication of how many people are at a certain gathering to make a determination. Also, you know, oftentimes the nuisance could be the parking of cars. So, you know, putting a number on it, I know it's a difficult task for you, but each neighborhood is going to be different. If it's a more populated area of town, you go and you put 25 cars or 25 people in that area, is going to have a much different effect than if it was, say, out in West Kingston, where there was a lot more land and might not be as impactful to neighbors. So, you know, in looking at that, I think it's just the 5. It wasn't as though the officers were saying, all right, we can go and investigate this because there was 5 people there. They went to investigate because a complaint was received about either loud noise, disturbances in a neighborhood. And as you see from this picture, this is the one from Pond Street that Mr. Santilli called in. There was 300 to 400 people that had gathered here. In this instance, a lot of the people that attended it had taken Uber and other types of transportation, so it wasn't as big of a parking problem, but we've seen in other locations where it is impactful to the road and where restrict either public safety vehicles or others from passing by.
All right. I got a few questions, but if anyone has any.
I do.
So, if it was your recommendation, would you have any number? Would you have a number? Like,
my recommendation would be either you leave it at 5 or you don't have any number at all. It's based on the disturbance itself. I think by putting a number, you may create a situation where we're unable to act based on a complaint from a neighbor, and you know, and it could be that it could be a large gathering, it could be loud noise in a certain area, but then when we come out there to it, the noise is turned down, and we can't make a determination on how many people may be in the house, and so we can't investigate it further.
mm-hmm. So a number would be restrictive, like in terms of like being helpful to the neighbors?
I think it could be, yes, in
Okay.
certain instances.
Okay.
All right, I got a few questions. I'm just going to dive right in here. I want to talk about how the existing ordinance sort of operates. You know, right now, this ordinance, it only applies 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. What are you seeing out there on the streets? Are you getting a lot of calls? What's out there right now?
So we're
It's
seeing a
5
lot
Go ahead.
more, and this was the recommendation that came forward, was that a lot more of the daytime parties. And so, you know, we wouldn't be able to enact it in those instances during those daytime parties. That, and in this case, a complaint came in from a neighbor, and as an unruly gathering, loud noise, and that had been going on for a period of time. If we had to strictly just look at the time frame and say, okay, well, it's not 10 o'clock, so therefore it can't be necessarily determined to be an unruly gathering.
Well, I'm asking you about the hours by which you can enforce the ordinance now. Mm-hmm. So there are unruly gatherings that are occurring, correct? In which the officers can go and enforce this ordinance and break up unruly gatherings, right? It's happening or it's not happening?
No, it is happening during the
Okay.
daytime, and I think that's the idea with eliminating that restriction in the 10 p.m.
I'm talking about the nighttime ones. I'm talking 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I want to talk about the actual ordinance in existence now and how it's working out there, or not working. Now, I'm assuming there are some unruly gatherings, you know, public nuisances that occur on properties between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., in which officers go out and sort of break up and whatever they do.
Yep.
And are you getting calls from that, or is that sort of tapered off?
No, it's the same. I mean, they occur then as well as during the daytime.
And what's the typical I'm still within the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. range here, on which the existing ordinance is in effect.
Sure.
What's the typical public nuisance that you see 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.?
It would be just a large gathering, a lot of people, noise, loud noise. It could be parking complaints that come about.
And is there like a typical number of persons or above a typical number of persons? So it could be 2 people.
Well, I think you're not going to have 2 if it's going to be not necessarily would be the unruly gathering if it was 2 people. But
Well, it can't by definition, but I mean, do you see 5? Because it says 5 or more.
Usually it's again a bigger crowd that we would be called to, and that's why that number is really it's more on the activity that's occurring than necessarily a head count of how many people before we can act.
Now, when you have sort of issued this notice of a violation, which is provided for in the ordinance here, have you seen that those specific hosts or landlords sort of not have subsequent offenses, or what are we seeing out there?
Well, I think more importantly is that we're able to end the party. That's the point. It's not so much necessarily the notice. We have seen instances, though, that a lot of times the homeowner, and in this case, I got in touch with her the next day. They're from out of state, and they were unaware of it. So then they came down on the people that they were renting to. So it does have a lot of value to it to follow up with it. But the biggest point of it all is that we're able to end the party right then.
Yeah, but there is this notice requirement, and it's sort of like a deterrent, because in the event they have a second offense, they have a $250 fine. In the event there's a third
Sure.
offense, $500 fine.
Yep.
So is that notice aspect working in that it's deterring subsequent offenses and we're not seeing subsequent offenses? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we've had this party here at this address, we had been out to it on 2 occasions. And the second occasion was when people were cited, and the first occasion it was broken up, dispersed at that point. But I think the noticing is definitely important to deter future acts
Yeah.
and future behavior.
Yeah, okay. Jim, I got a question for you. Under the ordinance here, in the event someone wants to petition or dispute an unruly gathering, notice of unruly gathering, it goes to your office to hold a hearing. Have you seen any of these hearings? Can you talk a little bit about your experience with that?
I've not. I have no experience with these hearings in the 3 years I've been here.
All right, so since the ordinance has been in effect, there's been nobody that's petitioned or disputed an unruly gathering notice?
Correct.
Okay.
How many have gone out?
How many, excuse me?
Unruly gathering notices, petitions have gone out?
I would say in this year?
Sure.
I would say less than 5 or 6.
Okay. What are we looking at here?
This is the backyard at Pond Street.
This is the
address.
backyard?
Yep.
So we obtained this photo from someone attending the party, is that right?
From the owners. It came in today.
Okay, so the homeowners provided this photo.
The neighboring homeowners that made the complaint that led to this hearing provided it today, and I gave it to Nicole.
You mean Mr. Salzillo, Mr. President, or Vice President?
Mr. Santilli?
Santilli, Salzillo, my apologies. Hey, how are you? Chief, can you walk me through how a noise ordinance is maintained? If you hear that there's a darty going on Pond Street, what are you doing? You sending down a car? Is there special equipment?
We don't have a noise ordinance. We don't use a noise meter. In this case, it was a loud party, a disturbance, so officers went down to investigate, and as you can see, the number of people from this photo, but their estimate was that there was between 300 and 400 people attending. There was underage individuals there. They were cited, and the officers did a great job with breaking it up and dispersing the crowd. Again, not to create another problem, but it took several hours to get people out of there through Uber and other transportation so that people weren't getting behind the wheel and driving away.
Why could they break it up?
Because
why?
In this one, because the underage drinking, the people that were charged there. So there was alcohol that was present, that was visible, and so the owners or the renters of the property were charged, and then the party was broken up from there. So they were charged under the social host law.
So you're saying that the current enforcement mechanisms right now stop this party from continuing to go on, is that correct?
Because of the underage aspect of it, yes.
Sure, but the enforceable laws on the books right now,
Yeah.
which were being broken, which was underage drinking.
Correct.
Stop that party.
Yes.
And so you said we have no noise ordinance?
We don't, no.
So what is the definition of a substantial disturbance of a quiet enjoyment of a private or public party, according to the chief of police?
Well, disturbing the peace would be if we had a complainant, in this case, a neighbor that's saying that his peace and his quiet is being disturbed at the time, and then officers investigating and seeing that, you have a large gathering like this without being permitted, and the underage drinking that was involved there as well.
Sure. So you're saying that officers will get a call, or dispatch will get a call saying that there's a disturbance of a large noise next door, presumably a house party that has too many people in the backyard. SKPD responds to that, and through discretion of the officers at the scene, describe that something is a disturbance of the quiet of the neighborhood. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so I guess my question is why you feel that changing this is best for our town when you already have mechanisms to change or, to break up a party.
Oh, my God. It's not him, it was the residents who brought it forward.
Point of order, can I not get interrupted by the councilwoman?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. So, I mean, so why do you think that this would be a good thing for us?
Again, this one is the underage, and that's how the party was dispersed there. But if there wasn't underage, there wasn't evidence of other crimes that were committed, then it would be permitted at that time.
Thank you.
I'm going to hop on this here.
Sure, and just one moment. Mr. President, do you mind letting all the councilors know that to respect each other on up here is an important part, and interrupting while we're asking the chief of police important things is a good part of keeping the
Point of
civility?
order.
Absolutely.
Point of order.
Absolutely.
Point of order. It was not the chief bringing this ordinance change forward. It wasn't on the.
All right, just to dispute
Point of
you
order.
there, it
Did
is the opinion of the chief that this
Right.
would help resolve issues that are occurring in the town.
But that's not how the issue was.
We can dispute as to what we're talking about here on that, but I just want
we got
to
an
get to
email.
Councilman Wedgeman's point that
We had a resident who asked for us to talk about the unruly ordinance.
And I have a lot of
It wasn't
questions that
Chief
I'd like-
Moynihan saying, "I'm hamstrung about this issue, can you help me?" Let's just be clear. It was created or came forward from residents. I don't want to put it on the chief.
Hey, I have questions about the ordinance that I'd like answers to, and I'd like to
Absolutely.
proceed down that route.
Absolutely, Rory.
Can I begin my
but-
second line of questioning here?
But it's not the chief that wanted the change and initiated the public
I don't think
hearing.
any council member is saying the chief created the ordinance in which we're looking at and contemplating a potential amendment to. I think we're all in agreement there.
Great.
All right. Chief, I got a few other questions here. I just want to kind of further on what we're looking at here. So in the event that all persons at the party in question here were above age 21 or older, there is no mechanism by which you could sort of end the party or officers could engage in efforts to sort of dissipate everyone from the property? Can you talk?
Without their compliance, but we couldn't order it to shut down.
Okay. Let me ask you, I want to ask another question, sort of theoretical here. In the event that there's 50 persons-ish, okay, inside of a house, no one's outside. All right, you got the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, right? You can't just go inside.
Right.
But in the event the unruly gathering ordinance is in effect, and this is really, in any objective opinion, a public nuisance, whether it be noise or whatever else is happening, how do you dissipate the party? Walk me through that. Hypothetical.
And you're saying this happens under the current
Let's say it
ordinance
happens
after
at
10 o'clock?
Sure.
Yeah, so the officers respond, and they'll make contact with the homeowners, and if evidence of there shows that, there's more than 5 people, there's a loud disturbance, or there's parking problems, or other things that they're able to investigate when they make contact with the residents, then they would enact this part of the ordinance.
So they would
and
enter
shut
the
it down.
property and enforce the ordinance?
Well, they would knock at the door, and if the homeowner opened it up and it allowed them to investigate it, and they were able to satisfy the elements of the ordinance, then they would
Let's say,
take effect.
let's say it's in plain view. You can see through the windows. Ordinance is being violated.
Yeah, I mean, again, they would look to get compliance and knock at the door and try to speak to the homeowner, and then explain that it is a complaint coming in, that it is currently under the violation of the ordinance.
Okay, and in the event the host or the landlord, whoever is there, owns the home, hosting the party, whatever, in the event they don't open the door, but you can see in plain view, you can hear it, there is a violation of the unruly gathering ordinance.
Yeah.
What does the officer do in that situation?
Thankfully, we haven't had that, and most of the time when we're out there and we're investigating and following up on a complaint from a residence, that we're getting compliance with that, and we're able to let someone know that, hey, it's what your activity is disturbing a neighbor or whatever else, and we have compliance there where the parties are shut down.
All right, so up to this date, you haven't been able to, or no officer in SK has experienced such a situation?
Not
So
that
we
I
really
know
don't know
of.
how that would
Yeah.
sort of unfold?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Now, do you understand why I have questions about the potential discretion that goes into an ordinance like this? That's sort
No.
of broad, you don't have to answer that. Go ahead, Jim.
Just want to make a point of clarification. I've had some experience in this stuff in my previous career on the state police. Is that the social host law in the unruly gathering potential law that we're talking about is really to hold the property owner or the person on the lease who's throwing party or parties like this accountable. It's really not to be used so much as probable cause. It is so that if this becomes an issue where every other weekend a party like this is being held, that the person, and there is no underage drinking, then the property owner or the person who has the rent name on the lease would be held accountable as an unruly gathering is occurring. And they would, the recommendation would be they go to the municipal court for that charge.
I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, the summary of Rhode Island ordinances relating to unruly gatherings, which we received in email 4 days ago. So Providence, none of these places, it seems to me that we may be the only town that includes ours. So like Lincoln doesn't, Cranston doesn't, Charlestown doesn't, Bristol doesn't, Narragansett doesn't, Newport doesn't. I think we may be the only town that is currently restricting it to any hours. At least that's what it looks like to me.
So I just want to make sure that everyone read the email that we got from a resident about the unruly gathering ordinance, and to they're not in support of 100. I was horrified to read today's article in The Independent about changing the town ordinance for unruly gatherings to potentially increase to 100 or more. This person lives in a residential neighborhood, owner-occupied residence. The neighbors next door have had 2 parties that really were unable to be addressed by the police. So we're going to, as I said in the other meeting, people are renting, this person is actually, it's their neighbors are having a party, like their own children are having the party. But I'm saying that in every neighborhood in South Kingstown, we are seeing URI rentals. And so good residents of the town are dealing with a neighbor that could have 50, 5, or 20, or 100 people, and we need to give them the ability to feel that they can have it addressed by the police. I think that the time is very clear that should probably go away to give more ability to address daytime parties. But I also think if you go to a large number, a party of 25 people, where they're out in the yard, peeing on the lawns, walking up and down the streets, it could be fabulous in a place where the houses are multi-acres. But if you're in Little Wakefield on Woodruff Avenue, or you're in Sweet Island Farm, or you're in Briarwood Drive, or you're in South County Hills, wherever you are, that could impact people's lives. So, and enjoyment of their own home. So we see it happening. I do think we need to figure out, I'm in favor of no number and no time and doing with that. Because once we enact a number, someone's gonna come back in a year and say, why the heck did you pick 50? That was crazy because 30 men did this, and then we'll be scrambling again. So I would rather have no number and no time.
I agree with you. And referring back to this same email, there's only 3 or 4 towns besides us that have a number, and in no case is it more than 5. So going for 50 or 100 is not something that any other town has done. I personally would feel fine with no time and no number.
So I asked about 20 homeowners in the past couple weeks because I've been really thinking about this. It's been written in the paper. It's, I've been, when I was a younger man, I've been at the house party where from the SK police did show up, and they were respectful, and they broke up the party and sent us home. I think it's a slippery slope to change it. That's also what I've told, that it's a slippery slope. And I personally feel that, I honestly think that we should increase the fines to the homeowners that are renting these properties by 4 times. I think that the real stop to having a Darty in someone's neighborhood is the homeowners stopping the people that rent these houses, or these URI students, from financially living there. If someone is going to get a $1,000 fine every time that they break this, and they're going to stop renting the URI students. They're going to stop renting the students that are causing these nuisances, because nobody wants to live in a neighborhood where there's trash being thrown into the yard and there's public urination. But I just want to remind everybody that's still against the law already.
Jay, just for the record, we are limited to $500 as a municipality, so although your idea sounds great, really whack them 1,000, 5,000, whatever, we can only go as high as 500. Now, we can do that repeatedly. We can do the 500 repeatedly, but we can't go above the 500, just so you know.
But if you don't have an ordinance about an unruly party, how can you fine somebody for having an unruly party?
So, all right, I just want to sort of jump in on this. Are we potentially talking about removing certain persons who could be liable under the ordinance? Make it only, that owner or landlord or person who manages the property?
I thought we were only looking at one area for revision, and that was what was advertised, is either the time, removing the time, or the number of people.
Is that correct, Mike?
That is correct. Right now, the definition of anyone who organizes, hosts, sponsors, permits, that's the language that if you want to make changes to that, we'd have to go back again. That'd be a substantive change. That'd be beyond what it is that you were looking at, which was either keeping or eliminating the hours, or keeping or changing the number. Those are the 2 areas that you can.
Okay.
I hear what I think about what you're saying, and I worry about it too. Like, if you had a graduation party when you graduated from law school, if you had 50 people, I wouldn't want you to not enjoy your family and friends. That's not what this is. That's not what happened to the Santillis. That's not a baptism or whatever, or graduation. It is beyond that, right? And so we need to give we need to have a tool to prevent that, because this is, our town is going to be, URI is already here. They live in Matunic. They live in all these little tiny neighborhoods. There are little houses, and it's happening. I wouldn't even think it would be on Pond Street. Pond Street's a great example of why you can't have 50 cars on the road. That's a busy road. It makes sense to do, we can do it in incremental things. This was enacted in 2018, and I think that's why I was there at the meeting. I can't, 2020. It was the prior council to me, so that's, I think, 1820. So there was some discussion about that, Rory, and I can't remember why your council maybe made the time frame. So I would just want to do it in phases. I want to definitely remove the time. I definitely want to get rid of the people, and then see how it works. And in a year, if people come forward and say, 25 is crazy, you were at my baptism, then we take a look at it about adding the numbers. But I think at this point, we need to fix it for sure. The hours, we can leave the 5 if you want to leave 5, but I think none is just equally as fine, because it's this threshold of lots of cars, drunkenness, loudness, unruliness, and it's not a benign little event. To me, it's very easy.
Chief, you were asked earlier about how many notices have gone out, and you said you thought 6 or less.
Yes.
It seems to me that the follow-up question is, how many complaints have you had where there were people, either because of the time involved, you could not issue a notice? How many times do you get called out for loud?
Yeah, and I think going back to Councilmember McAtee's question as far as what our actions is, and also Wegmount is, a lot of times when these complaints come in, it's to mitigate what the complaint is. So it's turn the music down, that type of, it's not an automatic, and actually that's what's happened before at Pond Street, is that there weren't charges that got brought. It was more, a complaint came in, you have to turn the music down, you're being unruly, and we can't get further complaints that come in. In a case like this, when there's 400 people, that's not necessarily an option. But there is discretion that goes into it. And so it's not an instant that any time we're going to get a complaint, we're going there to shut it down. If we can mitigate it, where let people know you get a complaint because the music's too loud or you're being unruly, if you can control that, it happens all the time.
And that's why I asked the question that way about how often do you get those complaints, not necessarily that lead to something
correct
significant. There's contact with the
We
police
get it quite
department.
often. And quite often we have compliance where they'll turn the music down or they'll disperse at that time.
And part of your policy and your training for your officers is to de-escalate a situation
Absolutely.
if they can.
Absolutely.
So this would just be a tool.
Correct.
An additional tool in the tool chest.
So, since this ordinance has been adopted, have we fined any offenders of this ordinance? Have to be a second offense at minimum? Has there? Do we have any history of that?
Since we just set up the Muni Court over the past year,
There hasn't been any
There
since-
hasn't been
since
any
I've been
since
here
the
in
Muni Court's
2.5
been
years.
established. Yeah.
So in the last year.
Would this go to municipal court? This
would
doesn't
to
go there.
municipal
Under this ordinance, it does not go to
On the
municipal court.
second violation, it would go to municipal court.
Okay.
The first is just a notice.
Okay. All right.
I'll take public testimony.
Yeah, all right, this is a public hearing. Chiefs, stay by. We might have some more questions for you. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item specifically, I invite you to come on up. We just ask that you introduce yourself, and we'll limit you to 5 minutes.
Hi, Elise Torello. I live in Matunic. I agree 100% with what the chief was saying, and what I'm hearing from most of the council members, getting rid of the number, getting rid of the time limitation. Those are my thoughts exactly. Depending on the neighborhood, where the house is, 50 people might not be a problem, in another place, 10 people could be a problem. So I am 100% in favor of getting rid of having any number of people and having any time limitation. My other feeling reading the ordinance is it says obstruction of public streets by crowds or vehicles. I live on a very narrow, curving private street, and the house right next to me, you've all heard from me about the very large house that's URI students during the academic year, and it's an Airbnb over the summer. The very first weekend, it was an Airbnb rental. They had a wedding, put up a tent, had a band, and there were 100 people. The road was blocked, there was garbage. If my house had caught fire that evening, a fire truck would not have been able to get to my house. I don't know why it has to be limited to obstruction of public streets. Can the word public be stricken and have it be any street? I mean, if a street's blocked, a street's blocked. If a cop or a fire truck can't get to my house, I'm out of luck because I'm on a private street. My other thought is maybe we need a noise ordinance. It just seems like, I was on the planning board years ago and we kept hearing, what if they're violating the noise ordinance? No, we don't have a noise ordinance. Should we have a noise ordinance? And my other feeling is, we all have neighbors, we all have parties. If you're on good terms with your neighbor, if it's owner-occupied home, and you're going to have a big party, you talk to your neighbors, right?
Exactly.
You say, hey, my kid's graduating from college, I'm going to have 75 people. Can I have some cars park in your driveway? How do we make this work, right?
Yep.
I mean, if we're neighborly and we talk to each other, this shouldn't be an issue. The problem is when it's, you're having an inappropriate number of cars and people in an inappropriate location. So, anyway, I think that was all my thoughts about it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mike, can you weigh in on the language of the public streets
Well,
in
I think
section 2?
I think the chief will agree that if there's anyone in town who complains, whether they live on a public or private street, obviously the police are going to respond. And there's no question that a reference is traffic on a public street, right? So and there are, as we all know, a lot of individuals, including myself, that live on private streets. That's something in terms of specifically if you ever wanted to eliminate that, we'd have to do that at another time with another ordinance change. However, many of the definitions of public nuisance that are described in the ordinance apply whether it's private or public. So the public really just reference vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So something for the future, but you can't deal with that tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just had a question. You mentioned that the road was blocked over the summer with the Airbnb, that through the pop-up wedding, we'll call it?
Yes, so it's a single lane road.
Mm-hmm.
At its narrowest, it's only 12 feet. We actually did measure it. And yes, they had, the owners of the house did not know that the renters of the Airbnb were going to be having a wedding there. And so yeah, we sat there and we watched cars just pull off and were half on the grass, half on the pavement, and we had to go into the bushes with our cars to get around them, and there was garbage in the street the next day. Yeah, it was a real problem. And of course, the owners of the property were like, oh, well, we didn't know. And by then the people had left. So, yeah, it's a real concern. And there's only 3 houses past this particular property, so,
Are you down Bentutic Point, or are you?
No, it's kind of, if you go up the road by the Hale House,
Mhm.
it goes steeply up the hill and then bends to the east. So there's a very large house, the first house on the right, and then there's 3 houses past that.
Off of Route 1.
off of Route 1.
You're near
Yeah.
the
Right
Mary,
behind the library.
You're near Mary and Steve Brown's old house, right?
Yep, right up the hill from
Yep.
them,
Yeah.
through the woods, yeah.
Chief, if someone's blocking the road like that, throwing an impromptu wedding, does that cause for, thank you, ma'am, is that cause for the SKPD to break up a gathering like that?
It could be, based on if we got that call to go down there and it was obstructing the roadway, that's part of the ordinance. But again, that ordinance is written for after 10 o'clock at night, so if this is a daytime situation, again, the officer's going to go down there and try to mitigate the problem and get people to move their cars and make sure we open it up so that, the residents can get out or emergency vehicles can get in there if needed.
Sure, but hypothetically, right now, there's a daytime wedding at noon at this person's neighbor's house. This Airbnb renter has filled in with 100 cars and blocked the road. We can't, and during the day right now, shut down this party for obstruction of roads?
Yep. No, we couldn't. Not under the
So you can
unruly
block
gathering.
the roads during the day and not...
We could remove the cars, but not shut the party down. Because it's outside of that time frame of 10 o'clock.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hi there, my name's Elizabeth McLean. I live at 273 Pond Street. Neighbors with Kelly Fitzpatrick and Mr. Santilli here. We live across the street from 280 Pond Street, where the picture was being shown for these parties, which happen quite frequently. So I appreciate the thoughtful discussion tonight about this ordinance. And I think that some of the discussion that was happening between the council was shutting down the party. But I think what's missing is preventing these from happening, because this happens over and over and over again. So I do agree with the removing the hours in the ordinance, as well as the number of people, because what's not shown in the still photo was that we do have video of all these Ubers arriving at once, and then cars trying to get by because everyone wants to arrive at the same time. So all the Ubers are arriving at the same time, and there were 4 police cars there for hours. I'm concerned as a taxpayer with the consumption of resources for this type of, violation. Part of the definition of the public nuisance is unlawful conduct. So it's not just the number of people or the time frame. There's a lot more that goes on into it. So I really appreciate consideration of removing that time limit, as well as the number of people, because I think every situation is probably different. And I appreciate the efforts of the South Kingstown Police in helping us all enjoy where we live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there isn't anyone else, I do recall several parties that happened on 108. Remember, we got, I don't know, it was some previous council we served together, where we got a text where there's a huge party on 108, people were in the streets. Yes. Right? Everybody nod with me like I feel like I'm living in a dream here. So there have been issues beyond Pond Street, and that was a safety hazard as well. Does anyone want to speak to that? Because I know they had asked for some data about how often it happens. It doesn't even matter if it happens a lot of times. One time on Route 108, where that party was, 1 death, and, it's someone who can't take that back. Go ahead.
We do have, quite often, we get calls for complaints for the parties. I would say we probably have 2 or 3 a month that they respond to. Some are larger than others. Some we're able to disperse with cooperation and have compliance. And then there's others that arrests are made and, we need to shut it down.
Right.
Whether it happens after 10 o'clock or other ways that we're able to shut it down because of other violations that occur.
Yeah. I can't recall if it was a nighttime party or a daytime party, but I remember the text. It was an evening party.
Yep.
Okay. It was an evening. Right? It was insane.
Across from Meadowbrook, yeah.
It was hundreds of people on that busy roadway.
Yes.
So we are seeing, it's not a graduation party. It's beyond that. It's part of the university community that's in our community. So.
All right, so if anyone else in the audience who hasn't spoken wishes to speak on this item, now is the time to come up if you wish to. Otherwise, we're going to entertain a motion to close the public hearing, then we're going to deliberate further and potentially act on the ordinance.
Motion to close, yeah, either way.
All right?
Second.
There's a motion
Either
to
way.
close the public hearing. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the public hearing is now closed. What are we thinking? Want to discuss this a little further? I have some general thoughts I sort of just want to get out there.
Okay.
Thank you to the chief. Some of our questions just kind of get down to sort of what's going on out there. What kind of calls are you getting? What is it that the officers do? When they get to the scene, it sort of puts this all in perspective. We're not police officers, so we kind of rely on you to sort of brief us, give us an idea really what's going on out there in the streets or at the homes or at these supposed unruly gatherings that occur outside the time frame of the existing ordinance. Some of my sort of resistance to this just comes from, I have family members who happen to be defense lawyers, and we talk a lot about, things that occur when, police officer actions sort of go, weary, and, when discretion gets involved, sometimes things get a little iffy. I'm not saying that happens in South Kingstown Police. I think we have a good police department, and I don't expect that to happen. But when I question things like discretion or when there's no number of persons and maybe a police officer is having a bad day, I don't know where that could lead to. I don't expect it would lead to anything sort of bad behavior on the part of a police officer. But that's sort of where my resistance to some of this comes from. We are in a college town. URI is right up the road in Kingston, in South Kingstown. I don't want to be in a position where we're sort of prohibiting gatherings of any number of persons, but really what we're doing is targeting unruly gatherings, and I get that. And some discretion goes into this. A lot of it sometimes is objectively, there's a public nuisance, and I get that. But there is some discretion that goes into it, and that discretion could tip one way or the other, for the negative of the person who's either a host or owner of the property. But that's sort of a lot of where my resistance lies with this. I get, there's been concerns, complaints from residents about these parties, which we saw on the screen here, of just really a lot of people, bad actors doing things, disrupting the neighborhood, things we don't want here, things we don't like happening in SK at all. So that's whatever happens here, it's not what we're doing ultimately is trying to find a way to remedy those problems and do what's best for the town. So those are some of my thoughts. Really, what I was hoping to see potentially here is if we were going to remove the time limit, is we could increase the number of persons. I think that would help sort of address some of my concerns there. I think that also would address the complaints that are actually happening out there. These parties that we see on the screen, if we can do a number of persons that this unruly gathering ordinance addresses, I think it would totally remedy situations similar to that and others that are happening in town. That's what I'm hoping to get with this tonight. If we get rid of the time, increase the number of persons. I don't know if anyone's there with me, but those are my thoughts.
So I'm not there with you with the people, because I think that for what Ms. Torello has said, what emails from residents say, we need to be able to enjoy our homes that we live in and be able to have the police be able to respond. 10 people, 10 men in a lawn peeing everywhere, public urination, would be upsetting to anybody who lives in a community.
That's also an offense of itself.
Like,
That's
why
not
they gotta be
relying on
men?
unruly gathering to
But it's a
to stop
trigger.
that.
It's a trigger. So I would say, what, Patty?
Go ahead.
I just feel
Continue on.
I feel like we should remove the 5. There's no other community who has a number. Any number you pick will be a problem. Any number will create a problem. Because then 10 people less or 5 people more, you're chasing a revision in a year or two. I don't feel at all uncomfortable, because I know the neighbors of these people will be coming, a different set of neighbors will be coming next year because we said it was 24. Because you'll say, why did you do that? And then we'll be in the same place again. I think the first offense is a notice, right? There's no fine, correct? So then that, Rory, we could pay attention to that, and then be educative and work and be participatory, proactively. But I just we're not seeing 50 parties. We're seeing maybe 6 or 5. And the first offense is no fine.
Any other thoughts up here?
I think we have a consensus on getting rid of the hours.
Yep.
With respect to the numbers, I can live with 5, and there are towns that have 5. In Mike's memo, there's at least 4 or 5 of them. I can live with 5 if there's a consensus of the council on that. I don't think it takes 5 people to necessarily constitute a public nuisance. And I do want to draw a distinction because the title of Article 2 talks about unruly gatherings, but Section 1231 specifically talks about a public nuisance, and I think that might have a different connotation to it. This is a tool for the police department. They're trained to de-escalate a situation. The chief has talked about trying to work with the people in the particular situation. I think there are other ordinances that we can also take a look at. When we started this discussion, I had asked Mike about mass gatherings, and when I looked at the ordinance on that, that actually says you don't need a permit unless you've got 500 or more people. And for the woman who's got difficulties with a wedding taking place on a 12-foot wide street, if that number were lower, they would have to put in for a permit. And there also ought to be an enforcement mechanism for somebody who violates it. The noise ordinance, I think, is a good idea because South Kingstown is changing. Like it or not, this is not a sleepy little farming village anymore. We're becoming more and more an urban city. And we have to start responding with the growth of certain population centers, including the university. We're going to have this problem more and more as we go on. So my position is get rid of the hours. I can live with the 5, but I don't think it's necessary.
I pretty much am just going to say that I agree with that
could do with
as
that,
well.
too.
Yeah.
Either way, I think we should make a motion to move on. It's
Right.
school building.
We haven't even heard from everybody.
Right.
So I am just to echo the vice president, I think I would like to, in the future, look into a noise ordinance. I think it would probably address some of the gaps in this. And look, I don't want people that are investing in their equity into their homes to have really a terrible time because of neighbors that you had no control over. I don't want that for you. I do not. But I personally am uncomfortable with this change. I am going to abstain from this. In the future, I would like us to relook at this and have a mechanism where we're fining on the first time and we're bringing it up to 500 for the first fine to really make sure that out-of-state homeowners that are renting to college students are feeling the pain right away. Because $250 is a write-off, right? You know, you get $250 write-off for a Darty in your yard, and that's, you know, they're renting for $3,000 a week. So we need to really try to increase our mechanism of enforcement for penalties in the future. But for this ordinance, I'm going to be abstaining.
All right, any other thoughts?
Can you just abstain from a vote, or would you just?
Yeah, you can abstain.
Just for no reason. I had no idea.
Don't need to have a basis to abstain.
So let's make a motion. How do we go for
All
it?
right, one last thought. If you're willing to at least keep the number at 5, I think that's a better route than having no number at all.
That was
We're
where
fine.
I was going was, I'm moving to amend section 1231 simply to eliminate the language that says between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Everything else stays the same.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Chief, if this passes, you got to tell us if there's any unruly gatherings with 4 or less. I'm curious. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. All right, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mike. We're now going to move to new business, item 11B. A resolution all right, item B. Okay. So at this time, in the interest of some persons in the audience we wish to hear from sooner than later, we're going to move up Town Manager's Report, item A. Jim, we're going to move to you on this for an intro before we get right into that.
Yes, appreciate the patience of the members of the School Building Committee and Facilities Project, so I would request that they get moved up because that's critical to us moving forward with the School Building Committee as we go on. So with your permission, would that be okay?
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. So let's call up the school facilities, Kate Turner, come on up, please, and you can do your presentation.
It's a school vacation week for Chris.
Chris is in Disney.
That's right.
Yes.
That's
With Luke, yes.
Wait, which one? There's Disney's all over the world.
Florida,
right.
Orlando.
Luke's in Disney too?
Is he in Disney? I think so. Is he? I knew he was in Florida. Yeah.
With how many kids under 10?
Chris? Chris has 2.
You might prefer to be here.
Yes, I think, what did he call it? The Tragic Kingdom before he left? So I think he would rather be here right now, to be honest. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kate Turner with Left Field, the owner's representative. Just to give, I'm going to go through a brief report and then I'll open it up to questions. We are still in the design development phase of the project. We're looking for those documents to be issued on the 25th of this month. So from that point, they'll move into the estimating phase. And mid-May, we'll have a really good idea of the current cost estimates for the design development set. We'll be able to come back to you guys, give a good check-in as to where we are financially with the project. We'll also be able to give a pretty thorough schedule update at that point. Once we've hit those main milestones, get through the next RIDE submission, we'll have some pretty great updates for you guys on those 2 key components. In regards to RIDE, we did have a meeting on the 9th with them, on the 9th to follow up on a meeting we had the 12th to review where we are to date with our project estimates, designs, schedule. It was a great meeting, very well received. We had received quite a few comments on our meeting on the 12th, which we came back, all of those comments had been addressed, and we're happily moving forward with RIDE support. We also discussed strategies for our guaranteed maximum price, which is our construction contract, the timelines in which we're going to be proceeding with that, the different bid packages that will be included with that. RIDE had made a recommendation to move forward with a full contract at the end of design development. We did a study. We looked at some potential options with Gilbane. Ultimately, we've decided to move forward with the original recommendation, which is a initial GMP, inclusive of our structural systems, concrete, steel, site work, any long lead time items. We've got a few items in the building that are taking a very long time to get on site, and then demolition and abatement. So we'll have those packages completely designed, bid out, and have a very sure cost certainty on about 30% of the project at the end of design development. We'll then move forward completing the design of the remaining portions of the building, bid that out with the completion of construction documents, and add an amendment to our contract for those remaining bid packages, things like mechanical, electrical, plumbing, architectural features, interiors, brick, etc. So the reason we want to move forward with that direction is for not only cost certainty, but to allow for completeness of the design. in order to get a construction contract on an incomplete set of documentation, you're going to assume a tremendous amount of premium, a lot of assumptions, contingencies, and allowances to be able to make up for so many unknowns at that portion of the project, which is why we would recommend breaking it up into 2 different contracts, with our early bid packages that can be complete earlier and get us started earlier, and then the remaining contracts further down once the documents are further complete. Moving on to environmental, one of the new business items tonight is to recommend the hiring of BL Company to complete a phase 2 environmental site investigation. This is following a phase 1 environmental site assessment that was completed by Ty and Bond, which is essentially it's a historical study of any environmental factors or risks on the site that could lead to potential unsuitable soils or contamination that would need to be addressed prior to excavating. There were a few environmental conditions that were identified that needed further investigation, further study, things like underground oil tanks that had tank closure reports filed, but at the time of their filing, they did not require soil samples. So we just want to do some confirmatory soil sampling in those areas to make sure there was no leakage of petroleum from those tanks. There's also a hydraulic lift that was part of the automotive program at the high school, additional sampling there just to make sure all the soils are clean. And then the final part of that report is just soil characterization for any exports of soil, anything that's leaving the site. We need to have a manifest of what's included in that soil so that they know where to bring it. So our recommendation is to move forward with B&L Company, not to move forward with Ty and Bond. Ty and Bond did not perform well for us on our phase 1. They were not very responsive. They took very long time to get reports to us. Their proposal for the phase 2 was very excessive, so we reached back out, got a few additional proposals from other companies that do this type of work, and are recommending moving forward with B&L Company after pre-qualification and vetting of their proposals and references.
Before you proceed, do we want to potentially take up 11G right now while she's briefing us on this? If we have any questions, we can sort of direct it to that. Go ahead.
I have a question about what you just said with respect to Ty and Bond and the phase 2. You described it as their proposal as excessive. Excessive with respect to cost or scope of work?
Both.
Both.
Yes. Yeah, we reviewed it with the civil engineering team as well as our environmental hygienist to get a few different opinions on that. But they were proposing about 33 soil borings at the high school and 32, I believe, at Curtis Corner, which is quite a lot of soil borings for the size site that we're looking at here, especially based on the environmental conditions that were identified.
Do we have any reason to be concerned about the quality of their work on phase 1?
I think the report was thorough. It just took a very, very long time to get it.
Any other questions with respect to 11G? All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve item 11G.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. All right, continue on now.
Thank you. Moving into local approvals and permitting part of our report, we did hold last week a public engagement session with abutters held at South Kingstown High School last week on the 9th. Welcomed comments from all of the neighbors, walking them a little bit through the scope of our project, the site, the lighting, the drainage, as well as the construction logistics, what to expect during construction. We got a lot of great questions and comments. We invited a lot of members of the public to join us at our pre-application meeting and our planning hearing. There were a lot of questions relating to noise levels, when noisy activities will be happening, making sure we're keeping the community informed of any noisy activities. construction fencing, making sure that there's clear separation between the site, visual separation as well, between the site and the neighbors. We have quite a few backyards in our construction area. There were questions regarding the student parking area, making sure we've got proper surveillance, and making sure students are behaving appropriately on site, especially it being so close to people's backyards as well. Comments regarding lighting, making sure we're doing proper cutoffs. So overall, it was a very engaging session. I think we got a lot of positive feedback, and I think we've got a few areas to continue exploring relating to fencing and identification of different laid out areas and parking on site as part of our logistics efforts. We are looking on the 22nd at going back in front of the planning board for a second pre-application meeting, and submitting our full planning board application on the 25th for a May hearing.
Okay, I have a question here with respect to sort of your meetings with the planning board. Are you having good success there? Are you potentially facing time delays? Is there any sort of influence or assistance the town council or the town administration can offer to sort of help expedite, stay within our timeline of trying to get to that September 2027 opening date? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so right now our critical path on our schedule has three major paths. Our ride approvals are a huge critical path, making sure that we get cooperation from, and good collaboration with the state to make sure that those approvals are happening as they need to. The planning department, we do have a pretty tight timeline. Everything, kind of runs in 1 month sequences. So we're looking at the end of April to submit for our end of May hearing. I've planned in our schedule for 2 hearings, so a second continuation into June, and then our final approvals would be at the end of July. So it kind of happens in 1 month increments with the planning department. So right now that's our schedule. If we're continued for a 3rd hearing, that could cause an issue for us. But right now, conservatively, we assume 2 hearings.
Is 2 hearings required?
It's not. It is not common that you get passed in 1 hearing, though.
Okay.
Usually a hearing for a project of this size is continued for a 2nd meeting.
Would there be any benefit to only having 1 hearing as opposed to 2?
I don't think it would improve our schedule, unfortunately, because we also have our 3rd critical path. Not only do we have to go through the bidding and approval process with RIDE in order to start, we also have to get our RIDEM permits, our Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, and our stormwater permits through the state. That is a lengthy process as well. So that coincides with our planning department approvals, because it's essentially the same set of plans that are getting approved by both entities. So the submission timeframes are the same for that. And we're seeing anywhere between 60 to 90 days for those approvals. So as much as I would love to get our planning department approval in our 1st hearing, if we don't have RIDEM, we still can't move forward with our building permits.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. We did have good, thorough meetings with different town staff members to look at what the process is as far as permitting, making sure we're getting our foundation permits aligned. So we've got those ducks in a row as well as far as which permits we're going to apply for when.
All right.
May I ask
Any
a
other
question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. So I was ill at your previous meeting and I couldn't get to watch, haven't been able to watch that meeting yet, but there was a lot of, reaction to the design. So I was wondering if you could speak to that and what will be done based on the reaction?
Yes, we did get very strong reactions when the architect presented the exterior color palettes. They were more of a cool gray tone, which was not in alignment with the direction that we've heard from previous meetings that really favored more of an earthy, warm tone with a lot of traditional red brick, as is found in a lot of areas here in South Kingstown. So we do have Phil Conti, who can go into a little bit more detail about the process, but the architect is responding to those comments. We've already looked at some additional color palettes with the architect and with with Luke before he left and with Chip, just to make sure that the team is kind of rolling in the right direction. We do think that this is a color palette issue that can be solved with just brick color. So at this point, we don't anticipate we'll need to make any changes to the exterior facade of the building, just the color palette to make sure it's kind of speaking more appropriately to what the town's looking for.
I mean, I only saw the blue, and I think that's going to, while it's the color of the school, and that's fine, I think it's going to age and weather very poorly, and I think it's going to look like housing projects that are not desirable, and it evokes very not attractive images to me, just based on the pictures. I didn't hear the feedback, I just looked at the design.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else has seen the design, has any other feelings, but because we don't sit on that school building committee, we need to be much more aware of what comes out of that project.
We should hear from Phil Conti, too. Phil, can you come up?
Good evening, everyone. I would like to say that the design is progressing as it was always intended. The floor plan of the building, very efficient, very tight, as it was started back in stage 2, so that's good. Where the design team is struggling is with the aesthetics. How do we break down the mass of this building with either brick or stone, and then the color of the brick and the type of stone to fit into the context of where it's going? Some architects need to hear very clearly from the owner whether they like or don't like, so that the design team can redirect. And that's where we are now at the school building committee meeting. We heard very clearly that we were not going down the right path. The mass of the building isn't changing. The nice windows we have, the views and vistas we have from the building are not changing, but it's just not fitting in right now. So that's what the design team is working on, either through bricks, materiality, stone, brick, composition.
Even the glass, I heard feedback about the amount of glass and what that, I mean, I only can speak from my own experience watching URI build lots of residence halls and, heating, cooling, all of that.
Mm-hmm. So we are mindful of the amount of glass we're putting in. There's a cost component to that. There's a ride requirement to making sure we have enough. So it's a balance. We don't want too much. We don't want too little. We don't want it facing the wrong direction without proper shade, etc. So the design team has developed some other renderings that now show other facades of the building, some canopies, etc., to provide that shade so that we could have larger pieces of glass that are protected. What I expect to happen is that we meet on Mondays, sort of like an executive committee where we start to present ideas. All of that material is going to be put together for our April 25th design development package that Gilbane is going to be estimating. And I believe that we intend to have a community engagement session with the aesthetics of the building in the end of May.
Yeah, we've got a couple of opportunities to review them. We are looking to present to our kind of, as Phil mentioned, executive committee, our working group meeting on Monday. It's where we kind of spitball some ideas with different members of the building committee, ownership team, school teams. We are looking to do an update to the school committee on the 22nd and come back here on the 28th to give this group an update as well, to give a full presentation on where we stand, so that when we come back to you guys in June looking for approval, it's not the first time you've seen it. So we are looking to do a full design presentation the 28th.
May 28th?
April.
April 20th, so in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
For what it's worth, one of the earlier iterations, I was at the meeting in February, I think, where the architect presented designs, and the reaction from the school building committee was somewhere between joyful and gleeful. You might want to go back and look at the earlier one.
Yeah.
we had a similar response to them, and I specifically said, I'm not changing the picture on the front of my report to the new rendering. I'm keeping it as the rendering that you showed that everybody liked, so.
Yeah.
All right. I know we do have a representative from Gilbane. Can you come on up just for a second here? Sure. You know, at the last meeting, you gave us some interesting insight into sort of the practicality of global economics effect on sort of the prices of costs and materials that go into this project.
Sure.
A lot has sort of transpired since then. Can you just sort of give us an update?
Well, again, like I stood up here before, I mean, the only thing certain about tariffs is the uncertainty of tariffs, right? I think we've all seen that. So we're continuing to monitor it. Where it stands now, we're not seeing any impact currently in the existing packages that we have out on the street. I think Chris stood here the last time and mentioned the project in Warwick in relation to steel had 9 bidders and packages came in under budget, very favorable. We're currently in the middle of putting out the Middletown Middle High School. I'm involved in that as well. And I can tell you the steel packages are out on the street. They're not finalized. But again, in relation to steel, we're finding multiple bidders and we're finding the pricing coming in very favorable, I'll put it that way, as we're not finalized yet, in comparison to the budget. So I can tell you right now, as it stands out there in the market, from a steel standpoint, things are still holding traditional. I'll put it that way. How long that lasts, who knows? If I knew that answer, I wouldn't be standing before you. I'd be making a lot of money somewhere else.
And not buying cases of Tylenol.
Yes, exactly.
How far out are we from that stage?
So we are going to get through DD, design, as you've heard. We'll put our DD budget together. Again, that'll give us a much better indication, again, on the steel cost for the project at this stage of design. And then we're going to get into buying long lead items probably in the late June to July standpoint. So that's part of the early packages you heard Kate speak to, along with the other ones. And the intent would be to buy that as soon as we can while this market is still fairly favorable.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds like good news. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Keep collaborating together, and if you need anything, reach out to this team, and full communication is going to help us get this project to the finish line as soon as possible, right? So thank you for working hard and staying so late tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. We're now going to move back to new business, item 11B. A resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into a lease agreement with St. Francis of Assisi Church to lease a portion of town property for a vegetable garden, Garden of Hope, for their meals program. Mike Ursillo, we're going to go to you on this.
Yes, so this is just a little expansion of what was happening before. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't approve it. Let's put it that way.
All right.
It is going to have a date of December 31st, 2025. Okay.
All right. Any thoughts on this?
Motion to approve item 11B.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just one question, Mike. This is essentially the same deal that we did last year with them. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item 11C. Terry Murphy, come on up.
Good evening. This is a recommendation for a bid award for our TRIP program through the Guild, and it is a self-sustaining program. We had one bidder, and that's Yankee Line, Inc. for coach buses for our TRIP program.
Motion to approve item 11C.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll just say, I was balling at that court right down the road over there. I love it. Great improvements down there.
It's good. You can play pickleball there, too.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you,
Thank
Terry.
you.
It's going to bring us to item D, discussion and potential action relative to implementing a South Kingstown Access Path initiative that would establish a hybrid bike and walking route linking South Kingstown inland villages to shoreline neighborhoods as requested by Councilmember Jay Wedgemont. Jay, what do we have here?
Thank you, Council President, fellow council members and residents of South Kingstown. I appreciate the opportunity to present a vision that aims to enhance our community's connectivity and safety. And what I'm introducing tonight is the South Kingstown Access Path Experience, or ESCAPE, a proposed network of bike and pedestrian pathways. And this initiative seeks to provide a safe, connected route to our community's town beach by walking or riding without crossing Route 1. What I know about this project is that it is not an overnight thing. This will take collaboration from our state, federal, and local partners. And the ESCAPE path would link our villages, Wakefield, Peacedale, to East Matunic, Snug Harbor, Matunic, Green Hill, and fostering outdoor recreation, sustainable transportation, and safe access for families, seniors, and visitors. And the project itself is more than about infrastructure. It's about economic development, public safety, and enhancing our quality of life in South Kingstown. And by expanding and improving our bike path system and exploring new trails, we aim to expand Rhode Island's public right-of-way to access the shoreline so everyone in South Kingstown can enjoy our beautiful coastal resources. So I introduced this proposal to Town Manager Manny, and I wanted to introduce it to you all tonight and possibly recommend it to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission.
All right. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
Congratulations. This is a very ambitious vision, and I think that's the right next step, is to refer to BPAC and work with them first. But there'll have to be an awful lot of other agencies involved. But thank you for doing this.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just want to repeat what Mike said. That's where it should go next, and then we go from there. BPAC.
Yes. All right. Any other thoughts?
A project like this would take what? Millions? Like I mean, the idea is amazing, but the devil's always in the details for me.
So, Councilmember Wedgemont and I spoke about this when he presented it to me to look at, and then we talked about it. He'll be older than me by the time this thing's done, but that's a whole other point. I'm only kidding. No, all kidding aside, I mean, it's an ambitious plan, but, this is where plans start, and if no one thinks about them, then nothing will happen. But to answer your question, yeah, you're talking millions of dollars. Talking to Jamie Rabbit, tens of millions, if we can get it to a point where we're not crossing easements and and I expressed what the challenges would be to the council member, and but I think going to a committee, whether it's the recreation committee at some point and the BPAC committee, they can work it through and see what the challenges are and try and overcome them, and see, maybe come up with a path for a bike path. When I was in Narragansett, I helped out get that 1,400-foot spur to the finish line. It was a lot of work. There was a lot of stuff we learned. Couldn't go under power lines because of the easements. We had to go parallel to the power lines. And the regulatory issues with DEM are big. So those are things we'd all have to work out and come up with a plan of where it could go, begin and end.
And Jim, did you give my memorandum to the rest of the council?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
It's 12 pages. I loved your names are very clever. People don't appreciate that. It was very clever. ESCAPE. Tell them what ESCAPE stands for.
It stands for Equitable South Kingstown Access Path for Everyone.
That's a good name.
You can escape from town to go to the beach, and then you can escape the beach to go back to town. And some of my inspirations, besides all the bike paths in Hawaii that I just saw, Aloha Matt, my brother, was the Beltline in Atlanta, Georgia. We're a very different town and city than Atlanta, Georgia. However, when you connect an entire town through pedestrian and bicycle access, you have the ability for economic development, and you keep costs low for lots of people. And the journey of 1,000 steps starts with introducing it to Jim Manny, and my goal is to not to have all of the ideas, but to introduce an idea that we all can expand on and work together on. So one day in the future, we can reconnect our old town to our shoreline safely.
All right. Perhaps a motion to refer to the BPAC?
So moved.
Second.
Item 11D.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us now to item E, Rich Bourbonnais.
To keep it quickly, this is a recommendation to award a contract for emergency tree services to largest tree service, largest forestry, not to exceed $30,000. This is separate from our regular tree contract that we put out every year, and that's a $40,000 fee, but this is, in the middle of the night when we need somebody to come and remove a tree. That's what this is for.
Motion to approve item 11E.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Thank you for the memo.
Wait, are there any riffraff on these trees out there? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Rich, I think we have one more. Item I, is that you as well?
Rhode Island Resource Recovery.
Yeah, so every 2 years, we've got to renew our contract with Rhode Island Resource Recovery. This is a request that we authorize the town manager to enter into a 2-year contract. No fees have changed, $63 a ton for municipal waste. Many of the other fees are all remaining the same. Subject to change, though, they could change things through the year. It depends on what their needs are. But generally, I've not seen that at a minimum that $63 a ton change. So, and that's what affects the tag waste and all those other things. So,
Motion to approve item 11I.
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Just quickly, how do we do with the rebate? Do we qualify at the 35% for the higher rate?
we do not, we haven't reached 35%. We're normally in that 25 to 30% range. Remember, we're dealing with two towns, so we're getting better, but we have had a little bit of a lull. And we try to keep on the haulers. We are regularly contacting them if they're not meeting their requirements, but generally we do get a rebate. We do get a rebate, but it's that $2 a rate.
It's $2 a ton, not $3.
That's right.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any more discussion on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Jamie Rabbit, come on up.
I just want to say thank you. I want to say the request from me is relatively simple. It would be an expansion of our existing Able City East contract to enter the second phase. There's a 4-month delivery on the scope of services, so that we would hope to be before council within 4 months with a draft plan, with your ability to hold a workshop with our consultant to go over the fine details of the form-based code for Tower Hill Road. I think it may be, and speaking with our consultant, looking at the value of your meetings with Union Studios in a work session scenario to go in depth into the form-based code, they would like to have a special meeting with you, so I'm setting you up for 5 months from now to potentially work that out on a Thursday evening if everyone is amenable to that, so that we can work through this and get a code ready for adoption.
Potential adoption by the end of 2025?
As I spoke with the consultant, 4-month delivery date, I want to hold you to that. The next 2 months are in the council's hands.
All right.
So
So yes, potential adoption by end of 2025?
that's under your control, Mr. McIntyre.
All right, I like that.
Motion to approve item 11F.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. Thank you, Jamie. It's going to bring us to item H, a resolution continued from March 24, 2025, requesting the General Assembly to amend the Rhode Island school funding formula to include transportation costs in determining state aid allocations, as requested by Councilwoman Deb Bergner. So we did have a draft of this ordinance at the last meeting. Mike, your office is taking a look at it.
I took a look at it, and really all I did was add the references to Rhode Island general laws that would be amended. Otherwise, I thought I did exactly what it is that you're asking, is that they roll those costs in.
All right.
Just so people know, there was a Smithfield resolution that was circulated to the council, and they gave their numbers. I asked Ryan Kilpatrick to give me our numbers, and just so people know that this is a serious impediment to the town. Out-of-district transportation for South Kingstown this year is 1.2 million. Next year is budgeted for 1.17, but they're already $60,000 over in one category, and they're going to have to adjust their budget because of it. So we're spending close to $2 million a year transporting students out of district, and the funding formula doesn't represent or recognize any costs for transportation.
Motion to approve item 11H.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any
Do you want to
discussion?
add any of your financial data to it?
Then we'd need another change.
I would recommend
No?
not,
Okay.
because you'd want, the reason is, you'd want it to be absolutely specific. You don't want to just throw a number out there, and I don't think,
Okay. I just was,
yep.
That was just for the council and the
Okay.
public's information, and Ryan just gave it to me real quick.
okay.
Question, Mike or Jim? I know one of the things that came up at the last meeting was, is the resolution in line with which the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns?
They
is?
don't, we looked, Nicole looked, I looked, there is no such resolution with the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns.
Okay.
There are just a couple of individual ones. Lincoln has one, we have one, but
A lot of copies of resolutions that we've been seeing with respect to this are sort of similar or mirror what we have
yeah,
here?
they just pass them around. But the league, and we'd have to approach the league is not, as an organization, sponsoring one of these resolutions.
Okay.
And that comes from the difference between, if you notice, the ones we're getting are the small cities and towns on the sort of outer edge.
Yeah.
I found the same thing with the school committee association when I was on the school committee. The politics of trying to get everybody to agree on that just isn't there, because a lot of the money for state aid is concentrated in the core cities.
So just remind me, after this hopefully passes, where does it go next?
So a copy of the resolution and the vote would be sent to all of our state representatives in the General Assembly via email and via mail, and also dispersed throughout whichever other departments we need to.
Okay.
And regarding that, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Tonight, at the House of Representatives, there's a special legislative commission studying student transportation, and that's chaired by Terry Courtbrand. I never know how to say her name.
You're good.
Right. So I think we really need to send it to all the people on this study commission, which I can give you their names: Representative Joseph Solomon, Senator Sam Zurier. So there was a 13-member meeting tonight at the Rhode Island House regarding exactly this. So it would be very important to also send this to them as well, I think. So I could send you stuff about that, and then you could do that?
Yeah, if you give me their contact info,
Yeah.
I can disperse it. I'd also probably notate it in the vote as well, just so it goes into the record.
Okay, and also, having spoken to some of our reps about this, it will be really important if we could get people from our community to also write in letters of support for this as South Kingstown taxpayers. So hopefully we can really try to encourage that as well.
So this would be the ask. I know Colleen's on her last couple of days, but maybe we could put the resolution out or have an ask of like, we're asking for your help, or I don't know, somehow getting a post out to saying, contact your rep, contact these 11, 13 people. I mean, we have to try to do some, we get a lot of pressure, we need to give the pressure up. So those 13 people could be on the email or the post from Colleen and how to get in touch with them. if we get 10, it would be worth it to me, 10 pushes,
All right, agreed.
so. We gotta vote. Yeah, we gotta vote.
Okay. Do we need to amend it to include who to send this to? Are we okay here?
You're good.
What's your email? I'm going to send it to you right now.
She's in your email. Oh.
I'm trying to send it from my personal
Oh,
email.
and Romaine.
Could we take the
It's
vote?
in Romaine at southkingstownri.gov.
All right, so we have a motion second. We're still in discussion. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Okay, we are after 11.
You need a
Motion
motion.
to extend.
Motion to extend.
If
after
we
11.
want to stay.
If you want to stay here.
Now, we got a few items which I expect we'll move through rather quickly. Is that correct, Jim?
Very quickly.
Mr. President, motion to extend the meeting.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Are we sure?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're continuing after 11. Jim, go ahead.
We'll move quick. So the Rhode Island Senate made April of 2025 Rhode Island State Police Month. I think Councilmember Wedgemont saw that and asked that we put some type of recognition for the state police on their 100th anniversary this month, but there's a big reason for it, and if you just read this right here, you'll see that these are troopers, Moon Hill and Matunic, in the early, it was 100 years ago. So why is that? State Police was founded April 2nd, 1925, because there was a need for statewide police jurisdiction. Only the big cities had police departments. So most people don't know this, but there's a strong connection to South Kingstown, and that's why we're honoring them tonight, specifically Matunic. Most people don't know this. I didn't know this when I moved here. The first colonel was Colonel Everett St. John Chaffee, not Chafee, Chaffee. And he was a World War I artillery officer, brought his uniform to the Rhode Island State Police. That's an artillery uniform, including the red stripe, which means he was an artillery officer. And his home, his private farm, was Moon Hill, where all these pictures were taken. All these pictures were taken 100 years ago. See that picture right there? That's one of the most iconic pictures on the state police. Matter of fact,
Jim, are you in that photo?
not yet. I'm the handsome guy on the right, and Matt Moynihan's the guy in the far corner polishing the motorcycles. But Moynihan actually gave me this copy as a present a long time ago. But the cool part about this is that the training facility was there on that farm for 4 years. All these pictures were taken 100 years ago on that farm, right off the exit, right near the Hale Library, just north of that, right on the right-hand side. Still there, the hill, everything. So I think it's, real quickly, they used to, you know how they used to train with firearms? They used to go to East Matunic Beach and shoot at bottles thrown in the water. Think about that.
They were making sea glass.
Sea glass, yes. The motorcycle training right here, all troopers are trained in horses, motorcycles, and so forth. And I'll leave you with this one last thought on that. Those troopers used to run up these dirt roads from where Route 1 is, Old Post Road, all the way through Tuckertown. One of these troopers got lost in a run. Now, the reason I know this, the first colonel, who was the first superintendent, lived there, and he wrote a book. So this trooper got lost. They looked for him for hours, they couldn't find him. In the woods, up by White Pond. So this trooper that was lost, this recruit, went to a house, a farmer's house on Tuckertown Road, it's in the book, and found a phone and called the Matunic barracks and asked to speak to the colonel. And said, I'm lost, and I found a farmer's house with a phone. He said, okay, good, how'd you get there? He said, I ran here. He goes, okay, good, run back, and he hung up on him. So that's how that was. It was an honor of my life to be on the state police for 29 years. Chief Moynihan, same thing. I don't think you'll find many troopers that weren't honored to be on that job. It was an honor for me to be a superintendent. I was the 14th superintendent. So in 100 years, we've only had 15 of those. But it's such a great connection to South Kingstown that I'm glad you asked me to put it on the agenda, and I'm glad to report it.
And if I may, one of my great mentors in this life was State Trooper Dave DeCubulus when I worked at Jim's Dock. He hands the size of bear paws, and one of the exemplary figures in our town about how great it was to be a trooper and how much respect it was to bring to the uniform. And folks like Adam Lepre, who are born and raised in South Kingstown, continue that tradition today. And so, happy birthday to 100th birthday to the Rhode Island State Police.
May 16th, the Big Bash, so I promise you we'll all be well-behaved when we're at that event. So real quickly, there's a few things here, and I'll run through these real quick. Chief Moynihan was honored recently and received a joint award from the Rhode Island Attorney General's Office, MAD, and it was the 2025 National Crime Victim Service Award. He was the Nonviolence Institute, MAD, around Family Services in the Attorney General's Office gave the award. He's embarrassed because the award was given to him. But some of the words used in the proclamation to him from the Attorney General's Office was this: committed to justice, impaired, compassion for those affected by impaired driving tragedies. He leads with empathy, ensuring the victim and families receive the care, respect, and support they deserve. His involvement with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, supporting events, raising awareness, and driving change have been nothing short of inspiring. He leads by example, especially through initiatives like DUI patrols. He was given the award because of his extraordinary service, unwavering commitment to victims and survivors, and his leadership in the fight against impaired driving. So that was was written on the. So that's good. The Planning Department, which definitely is the whipping post for the town. And the staff, because it's a tough job, but they got 2 awards, and I thought it was worthwhile to mention those. Jamie, get up and give 20 seconds on each one of those. 15 seconds. One was an individual, one was for the achievement award for the Planning Association. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yes, so we were pleasantly surprised that the Rhode Island Division of American Planning Association recognized the town specifically for your Old Tower Hill Road neighborhood plan and the draft for the form-based code. So you won the Excellent Plan Award from Rhode Island APA. The second award was given out to the Deputy Director of the Planning Department, Jay Parker, and that was the President's Award for his service to the Planning Association in Rhode Island and a lot of the volunteer work he does outside of his 9-to-5 job. Jay does a lot of work on the conferences, legislative updates, and is heavily involved in APA Rhode Island. And it's fortunate that he got recognized for that work. And again, we're glad to have him as part of our staff. So.
Excellent.
We're going to sing F for the next meeting. The master plan one we'll save for the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay. And that's all we got.
All right, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Chief Moynihan. All right, that's going to bring us to the end here. Are there any
Nope.
appointments?
Yeah.
There's the tree warden, yeah, under appointments.
There's
We are
what?
appointing the tree warden.
Oh.
William Wallace III, it is proposed for him to be appointed as the tree warden for 2025.
Motion to approve item 15B, a resolution appointing William Wallace III as tree warden for the town of South Kingstown for the year 2025.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I think he's going to be great.
He's been the tree warden forever.
I think he's going to be even better.
No, he's not. This is a son.
He's no William Wallace II.
Wait. Do we want to potentially leave out the third, so there's some sort of ambiguity as to which one?
He knows.
All right. All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes.
Mr. President,
So
motion to
before we adjourn, I just wanted to say, we had to talk about whoever's still here listening. Tuesday and Thursday, we have 2 budget hearings that are at 7 o'clock. We also, the town hall is closed at noon on Friday. It's a holiday. There's a sign on the front door because in celebration of the upcoming Good Friday. And then next week, we talked about on April 24th, there's a work session with Union Studio, and on April 25th is the senior bus ribbon cutting, and then at noon is the EMS groundbreaking. So there's a bunch of stuff going on next week and this week.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. President, motion to appoint Brian Smith to the Affordable Housing Collaborative Committee. We have interviewed him on 1/27/25.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second.
I don't recall that.
Can we
but-
confirm we did interview?
There's no vacancies on the Affordable Housing Collaborative.
Then I'd like to withdraw my
Just go. Sorry.
Were there any 250th anniversary persons to, okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Second.
Yes.
Second? Any discussion? Are you sure? about
Before
that?
she leaves the room, just say aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Dad.